everyone. Welcome all of you to the city council special meeting and work session of Thursday, June 12th. I'll call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda. So moved.
I have a question about is there a reason the rules of procedure in the agenda is at the beginning and not bumps the rest of the discussion?
Yes, because Ashley is gonna be on for it, and so we wanted to get her opinion out.
Okay.
So that was the only reason, otherwise it would have normally been in the morning, but yeah, it's not, there's no one to voting tonight, it's discussion.
Yeah, and then that's what I figured. I wasn't sure getting the presentations for the people that are here.
Yeah, so it's just for timing for Ashley.
Okay, I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, first on the agenda, we have public comment. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to make public comment, please raise your hand, come up to the podium and state your name and mailing address. Keep your comments kind and respectful and under 3 minutes, please. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment? Mary Beth?
So I am here because I see that we have the pilot pits scheduled again. And I do want to reiterate that it is not just one place that had an issue. There are many short-term rentals that have fire pits, and people on vacation are not as respectful of their neighbors as people who live here. If you're a full-time resident and you're bothering your neighbor can say something to you and you can resolve it. Short-term rental, that's not the case. I had a short-term rental next door to me that the fire pit was often in use. And when the wind was in the right direction, it filled my house with smoke. I'm not the only person who is complaining about this. I know that there are other people who have these issues that have short-term rentals around them. So I do think that, either stronger rules for the use of fire pits in short-term rentals are appropriate, or even a ban on them. One of the things that concerns me a lot about short-term rentals is that people who come here do not know when we have a fire ban in effect. And I have seen fires in the fire pits of short-term rentals during a fire ban, and I have said something to those folks and they've been like, I don't care. And it's not my job to enforce that, but I don't want my neighborhood to burn down either. So, that's another point that I wanted to make, aside from the issues of just, lack of courtesy to the neighborhood when you're on vacation or close to a resident in terms of use of fire pits. And have my firewood disappear because it was handled. There's myriad problems with having short-term rentals have a fire pits. It's not just the smoke, it's some noise, with it done. But that's my 2 cents for tonight. I know that it's not just one resident, and I know it's not just one short-term rental. It is more widespread.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Mary. Yeah,
Mayor, I can make my comments now, or when we get to number 8, please, on the agenda.
I should probably from now.
Oh, very good.
Thank you.
Steve Waite, representing myself and dozens of concerned petitions to employees that request eliminating recreational fires at short-term rental properties. First, I recognize recently that I made a clerical omission and inadvertently omitted a couple of pages from the most recent petition to council. The signature pages were from the presidential suite, a friend of mine. Has the same issue in the neighborhood of the presidentials. And she had a couple of pages that didn't get re-included into the most recent submission to council. Now, I do believe that all petition signatures were presented in October 2022 to the short-term rental task force. So they are out there. I guess that they have to. Madam Mayor and Council. When smoke inundates a neighborhood or home, it can't just be ignored. It permeates clothing, lungs, and homes. It can't be avoided. Who of us, upon arriving at a short-term rental, finding a propane fire pit or no fire pit at all, would use that as an excuse to break the law? Councilor Hayes said something at the last meeting that I wholeheartedly agree with, that the council has spent too much time on this issue. It's going on 3 years since the issue was presented to the STR task force and subsequently to city council. I presented the STR fire pit issue to the STR task force in October 2022. The task force felt it was an important issue to determine not if, but what code changes could be made. In fact, the STR task force, made up of STR managers and management company owners, commented that I should take it to council. They were of the opinion that if the neighbors were being annoyed by anything short-term rentals do, that it should be addressed. And not negatively affect the neighborhood. They also noted that rental wood burning fire pits are a lot of work for their staff. They have to arrange for the wood to arrive there and then clean up the pit after the guests. So Councilor Hayes is right. This could have taken 20 minutes. There are facts, science, health, quality of life, and environmental stewardship on one side of the issue. And on the other side of the issue, speculation, I guess. I presented the petition and made comments to the previous city council and mayor that were well received. This important issue has moved from one meeting to another meeting, from agenda to agenda, and kicked down the road. Council has spent so much time on this issue that the narrative has now changed from the actual issue to how much time is being spent on the issue. And if we're intellectually honest about it, we have spent very little time talking about the merits of this issue. Wildfire vulnerability, resident and visitor health, residential quality of life, and environmental stewardship. That amount of time has been negligible. On a social page, you ask if there are issues you can help with. I and the petitioners have brought you this issue backed by science, facts, health impacts, and quality of life, and impact to the environment and concern for wildfires, accompanied by a petition, all concrete reasons to eliminate STR fire pits. Councilor Hammond, I recall a conversation we had when I brought around the petition. You mentioned arriving home to find rooms filled with smoke because the window was left open. Many summer evenings not being able to open windows because of nearby fire pits. We discussed the health effects that smoke has on area residents. We talked about the health issues, including asthma that some neighbors have, and that asthma is exacerbated by the smoke. We talked about the temperature aversion from Arbor Street to Sunset on mornings and evenings without a breeze. Smoke settles in thick. We talked about a predominant wind direction and the nearby STR that had fires for 28 consecutive evenings. I was disappointed to hear that you had a change of heart. I feel like the topics we discussed were pointed. Is it logical to think that any of us, after checking into an STR and finding a natural gas fire pit or no fire pit at all, would go down to the dunes and light a fire? Having been a police officer for several years, I know a little bit about human nature. The very vast majority of people obey laws and regulations, especially if they're established enough to be able to afford an STR in Canopy. How many of us here would run down to the dunes and have an unlawful fire? I'd say none. Why do you break bad for a dune pit? I'd say no. We're not going to break bad for a dune pit. It's been hypothesized that visitors staying at STRs without a wood burning fire pit will break the law. And so it begs the question. If visitors can't be trusted to obey dune fire restrictions, then how can we trust those same visitors with recreational fires in our forested neighborhoods? If eliminating STR fires reduces the potential for wildfire frequency by any amount as a result of making a small change in permit regulations to an STR, then who can argue against that wisdom? Here are 10 reasons that eliminating fire pits at STRs is a no-brainer. Number one, the science is established. Even a seemingly innocuous amount of smoke is toxic and affects our health and linked to lung disease, heart disease, And smoke disrupts the receptors in the brain that establish a response to environmental stimuli, making autoimmune disease like pollen allergies much more severe. Smoke has also been linked to Alzheimer's, and according to the CDC, there's no safe level of smoke exposure. The beaches, number two, the beaches is the only thing we need to keep clean. Our beautiful nature draws tourists, and if we don't pay attention to environmental aspects of our coastal town, including air quality, tourists will go to where environmental stewardship is paramount. Our reputation is constantly on the line. Number three, there are alternatives to wood burning fire pits. Many of these were outlined in your February 11th City Council packet. Number four, good public policy requires the foundation of facts, science, and direct knowledge, based on a concern for public health and the public good. Governing without facts, without science or direct knowledge is poor governance. It leaves management of the city without basis or direction and left at the whims of officials with potential for self-serving. The reason for government is to serve protected citizens. Don't confuse nanny state with following science. This is not an issue of dogma. Number five, all we need for a devastating wildfire are several days of hot wind from Portland that we have annually, a few weeks without measurable precipitation that we also have annually, an ember or a spark, and the consequences could be catastrophic. We're not immune. Today, we probably all saw that I-84 has been closed recently because of Mosier and Rowena fire. Preliminary indications are that it was human caused, not intentionally. A couple of dozen homes have already been engulfed and many more are threatened. Canada and others have experienced multiple fires already this year. Number six, most of the lots in Cannon Beach are small. There's not enough space or time to adequately disperse fire pit pollution before the smoke enters the personal space of nearby residents and visitors. Number seven, what is more important than the health and well-being of your constituents? With the added benefit of protecting the environment, can you think of any benefit to residents by continuing to allow STR fire pits? Number eight, all of the similarly situated cities I reviewed have stronger to very much stronger regulations concerning recreational fires. Some even restrict smoking to cars and structures, and for very good reason. In cursory research, I was unable to find any city with more relaxed fire pit regulations, forested or not. Number nine, enforcement would be as simple as eliminating recreational wood burning fire pits as a permit condition for short-term rentals. Restricting recreational fires at STRs is as simple as changing permit condition. And number 10, STR properties will not exacerbate. Restricting fires in STR properties will not exacerbate the number of recreational fires or unlawful fires rather than we have in the difference. No citizen of Cannon Beach would ever want to get in front of this body and say, I told you so. Is there an acceptable frequency of wildfire devastation? I didn't expect this issue to be controversial. I expected the mayor and city council to advocate for its citizens the right to clean air and health and city protection. The fire chief has brought up a concern for the dunes that should be addressed, regardless of the outcome of this very different, very separate STR fire pit issue. Maybe we need regular fire department patrols. Maybe we need coordination with police patrols or volunteer groups. Let's make sure the chief has all the resources he needed to address the issue. But I have to ask, why hasn't the issue with dune fires been brought up until now? Why hasn't it been previously addressed? There are a couple of documentaries worth watching. One is on the Maui, Hawaii.
Can you wrap up?
I'm representing.
I understand, but you.
Yeah, if each of them had 3 minutes, we'd be here for hours, so
Right.
I'm wrapping up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
One of the Maui Hawaii fire and one of the Paradise fire. They never thought it would happen to them. It has been noted that several counselors and business proprietors have potential conflict of interest on this issue or have close relationships with the fire department. Or both. Many less crucial city boards and committees prior to each agenda item. Chair asks the members if they have a potential conflict or had any ex parte communications, giving members an opportunity to disclose potential conflicts. When a potential conflict is recognized, discussed, and determined if recusal is warranted, Questioning members also reminds them to be cognizant of potential conflicts. I implore you to adopt this practice at each work session and council meeting. Let's ensure that the decisions made by this body are above any appearance of conflict of interest. I've seen committee and board members recuse themselves, and rightly so, for even small conflicts. One counselor has multiple conflicts, not only heavily or entirely dependent on tourism for income, but also working with the fire department and reporting to the chief. There's anecdotal evidence that the same counselor has persuaded at least one council member on the issue while being severely conflicted. The mayor should require a recusal in this case, completely recusal of other. These types of indiscretions should be scrutinized in order to keep public trust. And finally, there have been comments made at several previous meetings, and information added to your packet, all of which were independent, without coordination. They are in addition to my comments and petition. Frequently, citizens of Cannon Beach have been overlooked for the perceived good of the tourist industry. Most of the council have direct income ties to the tourism industry. Must consider recusing themselves from this discussion and voting on tourism-related issues. My opinion, too little time and effort are spent on issues that affect residential quality of life in Cannon Beach.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you. Okay, next. Richard.
Mr. Bertolotti owns P.O. Box home 382 Cannon Beach. I want to speak about the electric vehicle infrastructure feasibility study. I sent you guys a memo. I won't read the memo. I just kind of want to cover the high points. Who is our targeted market? Who's going to use these chargers if we put them in? That wasn't addressed in the feasibility study. There was no discussion about locations and types of equipment. And, you know, why, how did you pick the locations that were in the study? There was no discussion about alternatives. There's partnerships that various EV charging companies have with various hotels, cities, businesses. None of that was discussed at all. I sure hope that, Bruce, I'm addressing this to you. I hope that the city hall and the fire station both have at least some preliminary plans for running conduit to some place where they can hook up a EV charger. It's pretty important where you are right at the beginning of the construction. Number 5, the total of the feasibility study was $1,085,000. So I guess who's gonna pay that, or how's the city gonna pay that, or recover that cost, or the meters, or have a credit card reader? I mean, those are all things that really were not discussed in the feasibility study. And the very last point I want to make is cell phone coverage. And we all know that there are certain places at Cannon Beach where cell phones just do not work. And yeah, I think it's time for the city government to get involved in reminding the 3 providers that have towns in town that there are dead spots are important. City Hall is one, and a lot of Midtown. My street, I live on Monroe Street. If I have somebody working there that has an AT&T service, they have to walk up to Hemlock to make the phone work. So we need to do something. I don't know what that is, but at least get their attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next. Jim?
Tim Remy, P.O. Box 429 in Beach. What comments? First, related to Wade's comments, which I thought were extremely well researched. I would make 2 comments relative to his comment. One is, why is the word SDR in this discussion? A fire is a fire, a lung is a lung, smoke in the room is in the room. If we're gonna get rid of outdoor burning, we should get rid of outdoor burning. I'd be fine with that, but I don't understand why SDRs are being focused on here. With regard to his discussion about conflicts of interest, I don't think I need to tell you all, but you understand that you're elected because of your conflicts of interest, because of your point of view, because of the experiences and and so on that you bring to it. And so it is not a legal issue to disclose or recuse for conflicts of interest for the council. And I just wanted to clarify that for the audience. Second topic, quick one. We got an email about 4:35 today from Bruce St. Dennis about utility rates and water projects. And since I was in the two column and everybody else was in the CC column, I have to assume it was written relative to me. Bruce wrote, the last been written recently about the proposed water rate hikes. Based on what I've seen and heard, those recent conversations were more about the dollars than the reasons for doing the projects. That part is true, Bruce. This discussion this past week was about the dollars because the rate study was so bad. The rate study estimated an ending fund balance in the water account of, I think it was 280,000, and we're going to be at 1.04 million. And so it would have been true that you could have cut rates 20% last week and still had excess funds. It is a red herring and the wrong argument to talk about water resiliency here, because I think everybody in the room is for water resiliency. Water resiliency should be done. I hope the council will do this. But it's not at all the subject of my writing or Richard Bellatti's or Randy Neal's or anyone else's. We all agree water resiliency should be done. It's not a question of that. It's a question of really bad inputs in that rate study. And I have to unfortunately say that those inputs must have come from staff. Who else would have provided them? They're off by a factor of 3. So let's think about that.
Okay, thank
Thanks.
you. Next. Shell.
However, I'm sort of saying my phone number. PO box and whatnot. Okay. Once again, the fire pits are on the agenda. It has been stated at previous meetings, we don't have a fire pit issue, we have an STR issue. I do not agree with the notion that STRs do not have an impact on the lack of housing for working class people in town. As the only renter on the housing focus group, I come at this a different perspective. I live in daily fear that my housing will once again, turn into an Airbnb or what have you. I'm not the only person that has lost housing due to STR density. Many of my friends also have. And when I hear people say things like numbers aren't really having that much of an impact, I challenge anyone that's being forced to find housing when it's almost completely impossible to not feel like their entire world is crumbling around them. A great step forward is to follow in the city of Seaside's footsteps and implement density restrictions. Randy Neal has taken the time to map out some revealing visual evidence of how close the licensed STRs actually are. Feel like everybody got the maps. So appreciative of the thoughtfulness, trying to alleviate one of the many issues that cause housing to be an actual crisis. We desperately need to move forward and not be afraid of progress and change that we actually start backpedaling. A citizen from Haystack Heights area spoke a couple of weeks ago, brought in a small petition on limiting STRs or eliminating them completely from certain areas. If you need a petition to show you that this is a problem, I'd be surprised, but I'd be happy to get those signatures for all of you. Please consider the request of the city implementing density restrictions as well as exclusion zones. The city of Seaside's STR standards are based on approved locations, spatial distribution, and density. They both have exclusion zones and density restrictions. A local real estate friend said to me that the first question she's always asked when somebody's looking at a house is, can I Airbnb this? I would love for her to be able to say, well, instead of just yes. There's a few hoops that you have to jump through. To me, the conversation of fire pits is literally watering your garden while your house is on fire. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you. Next.
First row, PO Box 80. Mine's a little different tonight, so I decided to wait till the end. My concerns are about the police drone program that we have starting. I have some questions and also some other people in the community have come up to me with some questions, so I thought I'd compile them and hopefully at some point they can be answered. How many drones do we have? The police's Facebook post just said drones plural, they didn't say how many. How much did each one cost? I know we've been discussing a lot about city's budget and goals for the future, so I'm curious about that. What other costs are associated? Officer training, software, updates, maintenance, etc. There's been no information I've been able to find about that. The police posted a list of uses for these drones, but that was not a complete list of uses. So I'm curious if there's any regulations besides the FAA regulations noted in that post that are exclusive to Cannon Beach. They said that there would be a log of all flights. I'm curious if anybody can see those logs and where they were flown. If someone is concerned that their rights are being violated or is concerned that these police drones are not being used appropriately, what can be done? Who do we go to? Will the use of these drones be limited to the city limits, or can they be flown into areas that are not under Cannon Beach police jurisdiction? Like on the east side of the highway outside of city limits or in other areas? Multiple people have already expressed concerns about our nesting birds and how these drones could affect them. And what was the motivation to purchase these drones? And could there have been a better use of police funds, perhaps traffic control, 24/7 dispatch, safety on the S-curves, etc. So I'm coming to you guys because I do like the idea of maybe helping our first responders with beach rescues, water rescues, and so on. I do also think that our first responders are already doing an excellent job. Between them, our Coast Guard and other groups coming to help, like Seaside, we do a great job already. So I'm interested as to why this was such a need that this had to be done, and I'd love more transparency, especially around the costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Is there anyone on Zoom? If you raise your hand. Anybody else?
Yeah. It says Jack on his phone.
Jack was.
Hello.
Would you like?
I'm not sure if it's my turn to speak. I have an appeal for the short-term rental.
You'll be a little bit later, so hang
Okay.
on.
Okay, no
Thank you.
worries. Thank you.
Huh? Anyone else? Okay.
So Mark, Ashley is online, if we'd like her to address the conflict of interest name, she can do so real quick. We want her to.
None. Well, but yeah, when she's talking. if
Okay.
she'd like to, yeah, perfect, yeah. Okay, one last time. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the introduction of Officer Dean.
Evening, Madam Mayor, councilors. Tonight, we're happy to introduce to you our new police officer, Adam Dean. Adam joins us as a lateral officer. He got to start with Newburgh Dundee Police Department back in 2005. And in 2007, he was hired by McMinnville Police Department, where he worked until June of 2020. While with McMinnville, he worked as a patrol officer, was assigned as a detective to the county drug team for about 5 years, and is an instructor in building searches, active shooter response, less lethal response, and is also a field training officer. Adam left McMinnville PD and moved to Earhart in 2020, where he and his wife Michelle have been running Bud's RV campground in Grove Street. Adam and Michelle are coming up on their 24th anniversary in July, and they have 3 children who are with us tonight. So I'd like to bring Adam up. And read the first 4 there, and then, Aaron, I'll before you go.
As a criminal justice officer and in service for the city of Cannon Beach, my fundamental duty is to serve humankind, to safeguard lives and property, protect all persons against deception, abuse against depression or intimidation, and be peaceable against violence or disorder, and to restore constitutional rights of all people to liberty, equality, and justice. I will keep my private life unsullied as an example. I'll maintain courageous calm in the face of danger all around. self-restraint, and be constantly mindful of the welfare of others. Honest in thought and deed in both my personal and official life. I will be exemplary in obeying the laws of the land and the regulations of my department. Whatever I see or hear of a confidential nature or that confided me in my official capacity will be kept ever secret unless revelation is necessary in the moments of my duty. I will never act officiously or permit personal feelings, prejudice, animosity, or friendships to influence my decisions without compromise and without relentlessness. I will uphold the laws affecting the duties of my profession courteously and appropriately without fears or favor, malice, or will, never employing unnecessary force or violence, and never accepting anything. I recognize my position as a symbol of public faith, and I accept it. Every public trust to be held so long as I am true to the ethics of the federal justice system. I will constantly strive to achieve these objectives, and I will dedicate myself before God.
I
Do
solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I support the Constitution
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the state of Oregon,
and the state of Oregon,
and I will enforce the laws
and I will enforce
best of my ability
to the best of my ability
as a police officer for the city of Monmouth.
to exactly the same thing.
Congratulations. Thank you. Wow. Oh, good, you have a sense of humor. Thanks to everyone that came for this occasion. And you're always welcome to stay for the remainder. of the meeting. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a discussion on for council rules of procedures update, and Ashley Driscoll is here. Ashley, if you'd like to talk first about the conflict of interest.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
So first, good evening, Council. Ashley Driscoll, City Attorney's Office. As a housekeeping note, I've had some instability with my internet today, so I can switch to my phone if at any time the internet becomes unstable.
Okay.
So the public comment regarding conflicts of interest did occur while I was having some internet stability, but I do believe I heard the gist of the public comment. Mr. Ramey actually accurately summarized what I was going to share with you today, but since I prepared it, I'll go ahead and go over it quickly. As member of the council know, I cannot give any member of the council advice about conflicts of interest that pertain to them personally. But what I can do is provide an overview of what the standard is and when it is met. So public officials are met with actual conflicts of interest when their official actions would, and there's some certainty in that, would impact themselves, their relatives, or a business for which they are associated financially. So if your official action would have an effect of benefiting you financially, then you have an actual conflict of interest and must declare that and refrain from any participation in the official action. A public official is met with a potential conflict of interest when any official action they take would potentially have an impact on themselves, their businesses, or their relatives financially. If a public official is met with a potential conflict of interest, they can simply declare that potential conflict of interest, the nature of the conflict of interest, and participate in any matter. So if a member of the council believes the burning issue that is on the agenda tonight could impact them, a relative, or a business for which they're associated financially, they can declare that conflict and participate in any action. Any questions about what the standard is for conflicts of interest from the council?
No, there's none. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So my actual agenda item. Let's go back in time a little bit. When the previous council was seated, we discussed doing a respectful workplace, or I'm sorry, not a respectful workplace, an agreement regarding the council regarding how you're going to interact with each other. This document was going to act in tandem with your already existing rules of procedure. When we went to enact that, we expanded the scope of that document to include both elected officials and appointed officials. And then when we were working through some of the process, the council then decided, the newly seated council then decided to bifurcate those two documents and instead implemented a code of conduct for appointed officials and directed staff to include much the same information that was in the code of conduct directly into the rules of procedure. As that task fell to me to update your rules of procedure, I was reviewing the document and realized that in some instances, there was some legal reasons why I would want to update the rules of procedure. It looked like it didn't quite align with the city's practice. And also there were elements that the city council may just want to review and make sure that it aligns with how you guys want to conduct your business going forward. So a brief background on what the rules of procedure is. So the rules of procedure work with your city's charter. And what they do is they help the city council govern a number of items, including how you're going to actually facilitate your meetings, how you're going to make appointments, and how you're going to agree to interact with each other. The charter, as you know, is implemented by the vote of the people. The rules of procedure, which provide more color and more detail on some of the items in the charter, is adopted via resolution by the city council. So what I have in front of you all today is a number of different documents. The first document is your current rules of procedure. And again, I went about the process of adjusting it and inputting the items that we had already discussed that the city council had asked me to include. As I was doing that, you'll see that I noted some areas that needed legal updates or attention paid to them. So I went ahead and included that with your packet tonight. I also included your current code of conduct that we applied to appointed officials, so you can see the language that you asked me to incorporate into your rules of procedure. And then I also included the League of Oregon Cities model rules of procedure for council meetings. This is a document I often refer to when I'm working with cities as a starting point and a discussion point for updating your rules of procedure. This rules of procedure is based off the League of Oregon Cities model charter, which the city of Cannon Beach doesn't use. So it's not like even if you wanted to, you could just adopt the model rules of procedure wholesale because they may not align with your charter. So my question for the council here tonight, before I spent too much time updating your rules of procedure, I wanted to see if the council would like me to do so. And if so, are there areas that the council has identified that they would like me to update to better align with how the council currently practices or how the council would like to practice in the future? So I'm going to stop there and take any questions for council before I go through my list of items that I have suggested that we update.
Anyone have any initial questions?
Well, you're not even suggesting that we would adopt the model rules, are you?
No.
Because I don't like them.
There's a few, huh?
Yeah, there's quite a few things in here that I find actually, well, that I don't like.
Would you write First Amendment anywhere, Lisa?
Well, the limiting of the amount of time for, public comment to 30 minutes, unless the council extends it, I think that's ridiculous. I think public comment should last as long as it lasts.
Right.
So there's things like that.
Is that in the League of Oregon Cities document or is that?
Yeah, the League of Oregon Cities, there's a whole bunch of things like that.
Yeah,
They can only speak once or a discussion, things like that, that are just draconian for the way our council operates, so.
So no, I'm not suggesting that.
I think generally I support the red line, version. I have a couple of super minor things on, 2.10.3, the special meeting. The word "a" should also be struck. And on 7.1, communication, the last sentence should read, council members should not. And other than that, Ashley's got a couple of points on 2.3.1. She's got the note that it could be improved. And on 2.10.6, the executive session, she's got the note that there's no emergency meeting section. And I did read that in the League of Oregon Cities and adopted something similar would probably be appropriate here. And 2.11, there's a citation that doesn't exist. So some other cleanup things need to occur. So I don't know if we need to discuss those things or whether we should ask her to make red line versions of those where she's indicated a couple of things that aren't in the red line document.
They're hard.
There are notations in the red line document, but they're not changes that are red line.
Yeah.
So I kind of in the same area, I liked a lot of the changes, and I think we should expand on some of the things like the citation, the inappropriate citations, but I had a question on special meeting, adding in the city manager, an additional entity to call special meetings. Do we need to add more people that can call special meetings aside from the mayor, and adjusting this down to the two council makes sense, because can't have a quorum to decide from without a meeting.
But what if some kind of special city business comes up that we're unaware of that is really important in part of the meeting? That,
Well, it'd be coordinates with the mayor or two councilors, everything, and say, hey, I think this is something that's important. And then the mayor or two councilors, if for whatever reason, be like, oh, yeah, that's obviously important, and we need to have a meeting about that.
I don't see the harm of allowing the city manager to call a special meeting along with, members of council. I just don't see why it's an issue. I mean, what the big deal is.
That's why I thought, why we can add it.
It's just in case of a situation arose where it is important for the city manager have something we really need to discuss and we want to, I don't know why we have to go through all those steps. Why not just call a special meeting?
Well, then how many stuff,
What
could that end up being? And I don't think Bruce is gonna call 10 special meetings or anything, but,
if I believe that if we're gonna leave that in there, that it needs to be expanded on what exactly that would entail. It would almost have to be an emergency. Nothing should call, I just don't see anything coming up that couldn't be discussed with Barb or two of us to set a meeting.
I think it would make sense if they were in an emergency meeting, because we don't have a declaration for what an emergency.
Yeah.
Calling an emergency meeting. But special meeting kind of seems like that's like just an extra voting meeting for us.
I guess I don't necessarily share the worry. I'm not sure what the concern is, what our city manager kind of trouble can they make for us by calling a special meeting. I would think it would be for the good of the city. But I'm just curious.
I was just, it just seemed excessive adding it in there is what my thought process was.
I didn't cross-check it with the League of Oregon Cities recommendations. But I could probably try to take a quick look unless Ashley knows.
I'm pretty sure it does say the city manager can call any meeting. That is, I would say, most typical. And I think, and I'll let Bruce speak to this, it likely aligns with your current practice that Bruce can add an executive session or a meeting, or at least he has been doing that in the past. Bruce, do you have any comments about that?
Yes, I'm working on several issues right now that could result in a request for an executive session. And so, I would say that if I'm representing the city with the attorneys and whatever team it is, and we reach a point and say it's time to talk to the council, that, and I'm fine going to 2 counselors or however many it takes until we finally can get the meeting, because the group that the council has asked to address the issue is the one that is saying we're ready. I can't remember a time that it was involved in calling a special meeting that was like a voting issue. To go ahead and have somebody like do a budget item or something. We've always been able to work around the council schedule. So my concern would be on the executive session side.
So
separate from special meetings in terms of calling them, because they haven't listed separately than the.
Doesn't really mention under the executive session section about who you're calling it. So that was kind of my question for Ashley, if executive session is a special meeting.
Many times it is. Many times that you're having a standalone executive session. So if there's no provision in council rules that talks about calling it a standalone executive session, I would just consider it a special meeting. And Gary, to answer your previous question, under the league's rules, a city manager can call a special meeting, emergency meeting, or an executive session. My one concern, so I mean, it's totally up to the city council if you want to have Bruce have that authority to call a meeting. My concern is more with the 3 members have to get together. Let's say the mayor is not there, out of town, or just adverse to an issue that other counselors want on the agenda. Having 3 counselors, which is a quorum, have to get together and talk about an issue they want to put on the agenda gets awful close to a prohibited public meeting for me. And so I advise that we reduce that number to 2. So if you wouldn't mind, I would like to go through some of the questions that I put in the staff report. These are essentially my recommendations for updates, and some of them I did actually put in here because I thought they were pretty straightforward. Others require a little bit more discussion. So the use of Robert's Rules of Order, I clarified in the draft rules that Robert's Rules of Order should be used as a guide. Robert's Rules of Order are very formal and they're best used by large bodies, certainly not a city council of 5. And so I just want to clarify that, it is a pretty loose interpretation of Robert's rules, but that is where we look if we have, questions about procedure. So if you don't mind me softening that language about how we use Robert's rules, I think that aligns with how the city's practice has gone, and I think it should be reflected in the rules. So any concerns about that?
No, totally agree.
Yes,
But a concern would be great.
I agree.
Okay.
But and that's in the red line version, your softening of it. And I believe it was very similar to what League of Oregon Cities has in it.
Yeah, and it doesn't say we can't use them, it just says we should avoid. Right, so, yeah.
This is
Okay.
one I noticed how staff addresses absences of both the mayor and the council president. I think this actually did come up at the city of Cannon Beach with one of your boards. The question is like, who has the authority to open the meeting? My suggestion here is to have a staff person, the city recorder, calls the meeting to order, and then the members of the governing body select who is going to be the presiding officer.
Fine.
Seems like we need that.
Yep.
There's a deadline for agenda items, and my question here is, does this align with current practice? It's in section 2.6. So maybe that is a Jen and Bruce question.
My question to the board would be, if something comes up, would you come down on the side of having wait for maybe 2-3 weeks? Or just go ahead and add between Monday and Tuesday or whatever? We schedule meetings or items later all the time, so that we don't run a meeting. But if something was to come up that was, very much timely, would you rather than we go ahead and put it on or wait until the next meeting?
I'd rather put it on. Right, yeah, there's something that needs to be addressed. We should
That's
amend
what we do
it.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, so remove 5 p.m. the Monday before deadline for agenda items. Okay. All right. So this next one is about how to put items on the agenda. And I know that all councils, sometimes go through rough periods. The city of Cannon Beach has really enjoyed a long period of what I would call some pretty nice stability. You guys get along really well as the council. You're able to get business done. And this is a great time to address the rules in case that, ever becomes not the case. And one item where I see sometimes city councils that aren't functioning as well have issues with is who gets to put items on the council agenda. And you can imagine how this comes up, if a council isn't functioning well, or at least one member of the council isn't functioning well with the rest of the members, can that person unilaterally just keep adding items to the agenda that the rest of the council believes have already been addressed or that they don't need to be addressed? So most cities have a little bit more process in their council rules about how items make it onto the agenda. Essentially, it's usually the mayor works with the city manager on the agenda for the upcoming meetings. However, any member of the city council during a meeting can suggest an agenda item get added either at that meeting or at a future meeting, but it takes a vote of the council to add that item. So one councilor unilaterally can't, dictate what's going to be on the agenda. They have to have at least the consensus of a quorum or the majority of a quorum in order to get an item onto the agenda. So I just wanted to flag that for you guys, that if that came up in the future, you could have a councilor adding items that the majority of the council does not want to address.
Right now, if any of you comes, so you would like to see an item on the agenda, question is usually, which agenda do we want it immediately, do we want it, or can it wait for the workshop or whatever? So right now, And we are lucky in that it's, you know, we're stable, is that, if a counselor asks for one, it goes on, it's just a matter of time.
I like that process, I really do, because it's possible that a counselor could represent a constituency of citizens who think something is important and other members of the council might not find it to be as important. I think it has to have an open hearing in the council session. So I don't like that change. I think that the way we do it now works out really well. I mean, it is possible we would have counselors in the future who completely abuse it. But I think if that's the case, then that would be brought up and addressed. But to say you have to have, a majority of counselors agree every time for an agenda item, some things are important to some people and they're not important to others. So I think it's a bad idea. I think it's kind of opening a can of worms and sort of suppressing the process.
Guess I didn't finish my thought, because as you talk about that, there's a part B of the, if somebody comes, we'll put on the agenda, we'll just talk about today. The idea is that the rest of the agenda, the council can always say, we don't want to take it up. So that's, I think that should be there to take care of the situation, and I've never had it. The situation that Ashley was talking about, where somebody put something on just to be disruptive. So the idea is to want it on, put it on, then y'all can decide if you're gonna take it up or not. But it'll be on the agenda.
We're on the agenda and one person wanted something on there and the four of the other people didn't want it on there. At the time the agenda was being approved, you could say,
Yeah.
we don't want to discuss this.
See, I guess
I think you say that during the discussion and give
Yeah.
the reasons for.
Right,
You don't want it on the agenda.
I think to suppress the discussion of something. And I guess I'm not anticipating or seeing a situation where we're gonna have a counselor put up something on the agenda to be disruptive. Because if they did, they'd be down during the discussion, the council would go like, that's ridiculous, why are you doing that, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that the process would take care of that. I just can't, I mean, I guess I've just been lucky because I've been on councils, the only council I've been on, it's, they pretty much are agree to talk about anything. And I think that that's the way it should work. I think it's the other process, the other way of looking at it disturbs me. It's kind of like, the head of the Senate saying, we're not gonna bring this to the floor. I don't like that.
So the comment at the beginning, that's currently how we operate, right? Then, but if four of us or three say, no, we don't want that on the agenda, we just take it off the agenda.
No, I've never done that.
At the meeting, when we're approving the agenda. say,
Never-
no,
never seen that.
Well, we've never done it. That would be the process.
I think
It's the way it works.
I know,
I would
process
say
is discuss it.
You have a
Discussion, and during the discussion, you can say, well, I don't think that's an important issue, or I don't agree with you, or,
But something, it is possible to remove an item in that banner.
I've never.
With the current way that it's written.
Yeah.
Ashley is dying to say something.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanna hear.
Go ahead, Ashley.
Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I'm having a little bit of instability. Okay. So the other way that I have seen this be an issue is direction to staff during a council meeting. And again, this only happens for councils that are not highly functioning. But at a council meeting, one member says, I want to see that on the agenda next week. And then the consensus of the council isn't that it should be on the agenda next week, and staff's in a position where they don't understand what has been added to the agenda and what hasn't been. And so you can see how that would put a city manager in a difficult position when they get to the next meeting. One counselor thinks it's something was added to the agenda, but the rest of council and the city manager does not. So it's completely up to you. I would say most agencies do have some sort of gatekeeping to the agenda. If you want to have it at the beginning, when you guys do vote to accept the agenda, that people can remove items, that works too. Or you could continue how you're going.
I would like to continue how we're doing it.
Yeah.
Until it becomes, if it becomes an issue, we can address it.
Yeah, I'd like to see everything brought to the floor. Whatever it is, whatever a counselor who is representing a constituency wants brought in front of the council should be brought. The floor is an open forum.
I kind of want Ashley's opinion on that. Right now, if a counselor has something added to the agenda and three counselors would prefer to eliminate from the agenda, that would be permitted currently. So to have what Lisa's talking about would take some additional work, or we have to talk about something.
I think it's not clear in the rules currently how you handle that. So I think it says every counselor, I believe every counselor has a right to add stuff to the agenda. I would say that the council at that meeting by majority would have the right to remove that item from the agenda. But it's not
Well,
particularly clear.
I think there's a difference between adding it to that meeting's agenda or to a future meeting. I don't want us to start changing the agenda because then we're not prepared to discuss it. Staff isn't prepared to give responses. So I don't ever want to just say, okay, I'm going to add this and this and this to this day's meeting. But to a future meeting, yes.
You're talking about adding something.
Right.
Not just taking something off the agenda.
Right.
But adding something, so if we all agree that, yeah, we need to talk about that and we all know what's going on, that's different, right? To add something to the agenda.
To the current meeting?
If we all knew about it.
No, because then again, that doesn't give the
Well,
public
it's
the right
right.
to come up, come in and give public comment.
Yeah, adding to the
Yeah.
agenda is not something that I,
But adding to
would be
the agenda of future meeting is what I want.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Bruce?
I always try to give the council the maximum latitude. So right now, I think if this was to come up, somebody said, let's add this to the agenda. Is everybody in favor of that? And if it is, we can go ahead and do our best to go ahead and have a conversation. But otherwise, we're at a point, it's like everybody wants to talk about something, but then somebody has to be the policeman, probably the manager. They would say, well, we can't talk about it tonight, but we can talk about it in a few weeks. And I think that sometimes the timing is important. And so I would do it myself by a poll, but that's up to you, however you want to handle it. Sometimes you all want to add something and we'll do it.
Okay, I was having a little bit of internet instability, but I'm hearing keeping it the same, so not modifying that provision.
Right, that's what I'd be in favor of.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to skip the next one about ethics and decorum, and I want to go to statements to outside organizations. And again, this hasn't been an issue here, but since we're looking at the council rules, I think it makes sense for the council to think about it. And the issue is, when are counselors allowed to use their title? So when are you allowed to say, you know, I'm a counselor at the city of Cannon Beach, and here's my opinion, or sign an endorsement as a counselor. So many cities have in their council rules that when you're speaking before a government entity or speaking to the media, that you clarify when you're speaking on behalf of the council and when you're speaking in your personal capacity. And if there's any ambiguity between the two, that you err on the side of caution and you say, you know, Councilor Driscoll, City of Cannon Beach, speaking in my personal capacity. And the issue there obviously is counselors representing or appearing to represent the City of Cannon Beach on a matter that this council has not decided on. And then the last one is, you know, the mayor is the political head of the organization. And it is usually through the council rules that a council defines what that means to be the political head of the city. And a lot of times it does involve when the mayor is authorized to speak on behalf of the council. So those are some, I would say, bigger issues that we don't have addressed in our council rules. There is some language in the model rules about it. I would say those are what most of my cities use. So I'm going to turn it over to the council for discussion on that item.
Anybody have anything to say?
On when the mayor is authorized to speak on behalf of the council. I think when the council authorizes the mayor to speak on behalf of them.
Right. That's how we've always done it,
Yeah.
and I think that's a good rule.
We've always done it that way, but that's not
Yes.
spelled out, was that
It's
the
not,
issue?
it's not spelled out, and there was a document that went out that Eric and I didn't agree with, and even though it was signed by the mayor, we felt as though it was representing us as it was representing the whole council. And so I think that it is something that we should have a consensus on before things go out. Because we aren't always going to agree. And, something went out and I had a handful of people or so, come back to me and say, I thought you were on the different side of this. So, that was concerning to me.
So are you saying that for any like letter or document of support to another organization or something like that, to go out, it would have to be unanimous with the council?
I think a quorum would be fine. I mean, if the majority, well,
Well, three people is the majority.
well, right, but if something wasn't voted on, if it wasn't even discussed,
Oh, I've never seen that.
so.
But there does need to be some provision, especially during a legislative session, when there's gonna be a hearing on the matter and you find out the day before that that the hearing is gonna happen and we aren't gonna have a meeting. There does need to be, and so what I have been really careful to do since that incident is just say as the mayor.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm completely fine with that. And we agreed on another letter that's going out and we all just said, yeah, put all agreements on it. I know you weren't giving away scholarship money, but, so as long as we're doing that, I'm okay with
Oh,
it.
I thought there was.
Yeah, if we haven't voted on it, I very specifically say in
Right.
the letter as mayor again.
Right.
Thank you.
Can I ask for clarification?
Sure.
One that I think that the mayors are put into a difficult spot is that y'all vote on something or talk about something, and then it gets into the press, and then they contact the mayor for comment, and it isn't necessarily resolved yet.
Well, if it wasn't resolved and they asked me for a comment, I would say that it's in the discussion stage. If we vote on something and they ask me comment, then I know how the council feels.
Okay.
Well, and they would too, the press would know then too, right?
You don't have to read much about the press.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for that clarification too, Mayor.
Did he lose that?
Yeah, she dropped off again. I think she's listening on her phone.
That's hard work. Ashley, are you still there?
She's gonna stay on her phone only.
Okay. Ashley?
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just gonna use my phone for now. So are we ready to move on to the next one?
Sure. I mean,
Okay.
are we? As mayor, I.
Did we
Go
agree
ahead.
to add model rules language in there? Or did we agree not to?
We agreed to keep it as it is.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so the next one on my list is a censure process. So as elected officials, there's very little the city can do in order to discourage or to punish an elected official. So only in very limited circumstances can a elected official, lose their role on the city council. There's declaring vacancy, which is in your city charter, very limited number of reasons that the sitting councilor can be removed from the council. However, in order to have some teeth to a lot of these rules, most councils have adopted some sort of public reprimand or censure process. It gives people an idea of what sort of procedure is going to go through when there's an allegation that you have violated a council rule. So typically it involves notice of the council rule that you violated, an opportunity either to have that discussion in an executive session or in a public meeting. And then if the majority of the city council has decided that you have violated a council rule, they can issue, essentially a public reprimand or censure. Some city councils also have removal from certain assignments, but generally speaking, a seated elected official cannot be removed for misconduct. I do think it makes sense if we're going to have these rules to have some sort of resolution process. So it is one of my suggestions that we added in.
I think it makes perfect sense to add some sort of, whatever something that matches similar to the model from LAC, that if we're putting rules in place, if there's no repercussions to it, it's just the point of the rules.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So was there consensus on that?
Yes, there was.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go back up to more robust ethics and decorum expectations. And that's why we started updating these council rules, was to include some of that language from the code of conduct. I went through and added that into the draft version that you have in front of you. But I also started looking at, how other entities have addressed this. And so there's two different examples of ethics and decorum expectations. One is Exhibit A, which I just took from a city that I worked with because I thought they were pretty robust and good decorum expectations. And then the model rules of procedure also has a little bit more robust section on decorum. So those are two options. Or we could just go with what we had previously agreed upon, and I have added in to the draft version. So any discussion on that?
Are you talking about chapter 8 of the model rules?
Chapter 8, did you say?
Yeah.
Let me turn to it. Yes, so it's chapter 8.
And what in this do you specifically think is missing from ours? In substance?
I don't think that you guys have a section on ethics, so I think I would add in the section on ethics. And then we have different decorum rules, but I do think they cover a lot of similar ground.
I wouldn't mind seeing those in the red line, but.
Right, yeah.
You're happy with the red line?
I am, I just am.
No, I was saying, I wouldn't mind if those were added to the red line for our consideration. Otherwise,
Okay.
we're trying to roll back and forth to League of Oregon Cities and what they think we should do, and
Yes, my problem under the ethics section is section 1D, because I don't know what that means.
section 1D, let me get to it.
Conducting themselves in a manner so as to bring discredit to the government of the city. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, I mean, this is similar to what we have talked about before. So it is a rule that's designed to encompass all sorts of different types of behavior. But if we have a censure or dispute resolution process, the council will be able to decide for themselves if whatever behavior is under consideration brought discredit upon the government in the city. And if that is the case, again, the repercussion here is a public reprimand.
Well, I guess I still don't understand what bring discredit upon me. I don't understand the word discredit. What does that mean? Does it mean, bad mouthing something the city has decided to do? Does it mean, disagreeing? Does it mean, behaving in a public forum in a, bizarre way? I mean, I'm not sure what that means, to bring discredit. I mean, that seems to be very, open-ended to me. And again, it's in the eyes of the beholder. What my discredit, idea of discredit is gonna be different than Barb's, it's gonna be different than Gary's, it's gonna be, what I mean? I don't understand what that means.
Yes, and it will be up to the majority of the city council. So again, I think the idea behind it is to be able to give the city council a tool to be able to address behavior that they think is problematic and impacts the reputation of the city government. And again, it's adding it in as a rule and then being able to enforce the rules through, a public reprimand or censure process. And essentially in this case, it's to be able to communicate to the public that whatever conduct the elected official is participating in is not with the rest of the city council's approval.
So it would be like an ethics violation or something that's defined earlier in the document, right?
I mean, it could be, it could also be something, behavior at another meeting that is problematic, that, they're representing the city of Cannon Beach at a meeting in front of the county and they're using problematic language, whether it's offensive language or, abusive language. You, as the city council, could use this tool to be able to send a public message that although that person is a member of your council, they were, you do not agree or support their conduct.
It sounds like a free speech issue to me. I'm sorry. Makes me very uncomfortable.
Yep. I definitely know how you feel about the free speech issues. And again, this is bringing back a lot of memories of some of our previous conversations about it. But it's to be able to establish a standard and then at least have the ability for the city council to be able to discuss and to distance themselves from behavior they find problematic.
So my suggestion would be to eliminate that one item and then put the rest of it in draft for us to do further discuss.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Are we okay with that?
A, B, and C? Yeah, A, and C are fine.
Well, I agree with the word, I agree with what you're saying, Lisa, but I think that it should say something. I think this is the only place that it says anything about how we should conduct ourselves. Am I wrong, Ashley?
Well, you have added in some language from our previous discussion, but prior to this language we're currently discussing adding in the red line, no, you did not have any language that addressed it.
And I just think, I personally think there should be some kind of just a safeguard, and I think that's what Ashley is saying, is that there should be a safeguard. And this isn't just for the five of us, but this is for future councils as well, right? I mean, we could set up a scenario where, Bill Ball gets elected to a council and he's running around in his underwear representing all this. I mean, I know that's maybe a little far-fetched, but that is a behavior that we would want representing the city. I know where it's going.
It also could cover somebody going to a demonstration up in Astoria and, using foul language to address, people against them, protest or something. I don't think that we should have to be held to not be able to speak for ourselves as a person in outside of the city council business or city business. I think we should be able to, say whatever we want to say.
You are permitted to say whatever you want.
Right.
And you face the censure process. You face the disagreement of the council saying, no, that individual doesn't agree. Or we don't agree with that
I don't
individual.
think council should be monitoring or overseeing the behavior of somebody in a forum that has nothing to do with the city council. In other words, let's say some protest up in Astoria. I don't want to have the city council decide how I should behave at a protest unless I'm representing the city. Then, of course, but if I'm just representing myself, I should be able to behave it. And if I behave in an unlawful manner, I'll get arrested. And that's what's.
Well, and this would be what the executive session for the censure would be, is a decision of were you representing the city and bringing this credit to this fuzzy limited credit, were you bringing this credit to Cannon Beach? Or were you just protesting and as Lisa Kerr or Eric Ostrander protesting?
I don't know, I think it's it's a slippery slope and it really bothers me. I don't think that, we had this discussion before with the old, when this kind of issue was brought before us before, we decided as a council that no, we're not going to, unless it's directly related to some kind of city business or city affairs, if you act a certain way out in public, the censure is gonna come from your friends or your acquaintances or from other citizens. But I don't think the city council should be monitoring other councilors' behavior when it's not connected to the city.
So can we include some verbiage that says something about the effect that, it's when they're acting as a member of the elected body?
So a couple things. So right now it says that League of Oregon Cities model rules say conducting themselves in a manner as to bring discredit upon the government of the city. So there is a direct link back to your role with the city. So, I mean, bringing discredit to you or your family, that's really not under issue here. It's when the conduct brings discredit to the government. And again, I would like to emphasize that this is a little bit of a different discussion because we're not talking about removing somebody from their role with the city because of their, conduct or speech. This is essentially more speech. And what we've talked about is that the antidote often to problematic speech is more speech. So this is the city council just saying, we do not agree with that conduct. We agree that it, brings discredit around the city. And we would like to publicly announce that is not how the public body feels or believes our elected officials should conduct themselves.
So I hear what Lisa is saying. And when do you have a council or when you do have a council, if you do have a council that has one or two members or whatever, that they don't agree with, bring things out like going to Astoria. I have First Amendment written on here numerous times, and I agree with you. It is, I think it's too slippery this slope. I mean, I know I've kind of gone through both, but I needed to, hear some more discussion.
I think removing D for now would solve the problem.
Yeah.
Because A, B, and C are, to me, self-evident. That, you know, those, that they should be part of this. These rules, but I don't see D with the way it's described here. Unless there was some other way to say it and make it much more specific. But the way it is here is to me, well, disturbing.
So are we in agreement? We're okay with taking out the. Okay, so let's move on. Please.
Okay, so the last one is just housekeeping. So these rules reference both city council and then for it to also regulate boards and commissions. We had talked about before having two separate governing documents, one for the city council and one for boards and commissions. So I wanted to ask if the council wanted to remove references to members of boards and commissions in this document.
I think so. In my opinion, I feel like just because there's, it's not consistent throughout it anyways. There's places where it should be, if it's included, it should be more places. If it's not included, it should be removed from half the places that are that.
And we do have the other.
The other contact.
Right. So two separate ones, it's the way we'd like to go.
Okay. So that's
Anything else?
So nothing else from my end. This is the council's opportunity. If there is something that they saw that they would like addressed, that we at a staff level could do that and bring back a full red line for your review.
Bruce,
We had a discussion on 8.2.
8.2.
Authorization, the city managers needed prior to a councilman taking a trip and incurring expenses on city related business.
No,
It's in the part, it's in the red. The underlying
Page
chart.
9 of 10.
Yeah,
Oh,
underlying
yes,
chart.
Yeah. So what about it?
I personally don't want to get into proving y'all's travel. Think that if you know, ask council, do you want to, can I go to this meeting and wherever, or you go and have to justify it. But to come to me and say, I want to go to something in Salem, I don't want to be the one that's regulating y'all's travel or, how you operate.
So it could be authorized by
So how does it
council.
work?
I imagine it would be authorized by council or,
The council doesn't have a budget.
Yeah,
I
we,
mean,
we have, well, that's just.
Yeah, it's not enough coffee.
coffee days or whatever.
So.
I just don't think that I don't supervise you. And I don't think that, I should be making decisions on whether or not you or somebody can go to say.
Ashley, how do other cities address that?
I don't believe that other cities have that in their council rules, so that one is a new one for me.
Okay.
I'd like to see it taken out.
Yeah, I agree with first, it's backwards.
No more trips. Okay, anything
Well,
else?
so how will something get approved?
You have to bring it to council, I guess, and get a majority vote on it.
So it's not just remove it, it's change it from authorization must come from city council.
Yeah.
Want me to
Prior
say
to.
what we've done?
Yeah.
Somebody comes to me and says, Jen, I want to attend this
League of Oregon Cities, yeah.
Well, you register me, and then I usually just register that. But I've never had a counselor ask to go to something that wasn't council appropriate.
Vegas is out of the question.
Yeah, I'm not like a.
Okay, we're done.
So previously, we weren't even following it, getting authorization from the city manager, it's just kind of into register.
Yeah, but it's not been very often, and they've always been things that are.
Yeah.
I think that first time as well, so.
Right, but if we have a special interest, like in an ocean environmental group, we're not gonna, it is appropriate to request council.
City expenses.
City expenses to go to the favorite stuff. So, we can order the city's type, so. So, yeah, no, I think that it's, I think it, yeah.
Right, I really am just.
Well,
Have it be there,
right, and, but I mean, if,
continue to let Jen do it on,
Yeah.
at her discretion.
but it's based on our budget.
Yeah, we've never gone over the budget amount.
Right.
I mean, if we ever did have an issue, maybe that's one.
Then it was comes to council.
Yeah.
There are certain things that we budget, or you usually go to the League
I know,
of Cities. And so if you, for example, say, you register, and I started inside.
Okay. Good with that one. Anything else? Ashley?
Nope, nothing for me.
Okay, thank you. Do you have enough direction?
I believe I do. And I'll bring back
Okay.
a red line for discussion.
Great.
Can we do that, would it be okay if we did that in August, because the July work session's getting pretty full, or is that too far out? Okay,
No, we'll try to be on our best behavior.
well, I'll do the July work session, I mean, August,
Okay.
where.
That's okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, okay, next on our agenda, we have presentations from Recology. We're gonna, I think we're gonna give you a minute or two to get situated.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is Dan Blue and I'm the Government Community Relations Manager for Recology Northern Oregon.
I'm Katie Hardsey, I'm the operations manager for our coastal operations.
We also have our general manager, Chris Carey, in the back, and two of our operations folks, who Katie will introduce here in a minute once we jump in. So we have a few slides tonight. We're just gonna remind folks, and I know there's some new counselors in the room, for us at least, a little bit about Recology, talk about some of the things and services that we provide here in Cannon Beach, and then we'll jump into the proposed rate adjustment section. So next slide, please. A little bit about Recology, just as a reminder, we're a West Coast only materials management company with just under 4,000 employee owners. We're both owners of the company as well. We serve 137 communities through 26 collection companies. We operate 24 transfer stations, including one close by here in Astoria. 14 material recovery facilities, that's where recyclables are sorted into different materials, and then 8 composting facilities. So Katie will talk a little bit more about our operations here at North Coast. Next slide, please.
So you know, our main office is based out of Warrenton, Oregon, and we provide service to the majority of Clatsop County and northern Tillamook County. We have a little side by side out on outside of Nehalem. So I'm really excited to talk about this part of the operations this year. Steve Heisen, stand up please. Promoted this year to operations supervisor, which has been fantastic. And then he made the quiet decision of hiring Josh McCarron. Josh. So Josh is your garbage driver. He picks up the majority of the downtown commercial and all of your residential service customers here. This is your guy. Josh has been on a little over 7 months now, and he's just been fantastic. I'm not sure if you're aware, before him, we were kind of going through backup driver through backup driver through backup driver to try and get Cannon Beach covered because nobody wanted to run the route. It was a little bit tough getting someone hired. We got Josh on and it's been fantastic. He's been
so diligent on what he's doing. He actually came down on the weekend and helped a customer with her enclosure for the garbage can. So excellent hire. I'm so happy to have him on. He's dedicated to what he does. Couldn't be happier. Anyways, I just wanted you to see his face. If you see him, say hi. He's a super nice guy.
Next slide, please.
This year, what we've been able to do with, Cannon Beach, you can kind of see through our slide there, some of the stuff we support. So the Castle County Fair, we did the Earth Day Street Fair this year, which was actually fantastic. We brought a box down and let people dump their electronics in it, and then also had a battery education part of it to see how to properly dispose of batteries, because, battery fires at the transfer station, we have them every year where all of a sudden there's a fire on the tip floor. We've had them in the truck where the truck's on fire. So we have to go find a place to eject that load. Where that is, and that's your button batteries normally is what's causing that. So that was really great to do some education on that, and also just some general recycling education reduction. We also were there for the Shred It event, and we support the Sandcastle Days and the solve events that get put on down here. This year, we're also doing a mattress recycling event at the Astoria transfer station where you bring your mattress for free and take it. We're in partnership with someone else now. That's just in a couple of weeks, June 26th. So if you want to put it out there to your residents and if they're hanging on to a gross mattress, they can bring it to the transfer station for free and we'll take it. I'm gonna just stop it there. Good, okay.
Yeah, additionally, we offer waste reduction services, so help with recycling for multifamily, commercial, residential customers. I do want to say that we've had some issues and challenges with customer service in terms of wait times in the past. Our customer service wait time is down 71% year over year. We're very proud of that work, and we're continuing to hold the line on very low wait times. So I just want to share that with you. Next slide, please. Now that we're done with the fun stuff, I get to talk about the rate. So just as you know, we're privileged to be your franchise garbage hauler. That gives us exclusivity here in Cannon Beach. It also allows us to convey some funds to you in terms of the form of franchise fees. But we're also only allowed to operate within a certain margin, our profit margin, in exchange for the services that we provide under the franchise agreement. So I'm just gonna cut right to it. You can see it on the screen. We are proposing a 2.1% rate adjustment this year. This is considered a cost of living or CPI based adjustment. The way the process works is each year we look at our previous year actual expenses and revenues, and then we look at our current year projected expenses and revenues. And then from that, we estimate that operating ratio that we're allowed through city code and our franchise agreement. There are really two different ways that rates can be adjusted. One way is through a CPI adjustment, which is what we're proposing tonight. The other way is a more thorough rate review, and that is a little bit more lengthy process, requires more discussion and a vote of council. The CPI adjustment is, I don't want to say it's just automatic. We're here to present it to you and share it with you, but it is allowed the franchise to adjust those on a CPI basis. So CPI last year, March to April, was 2.1%. Our rate adjustment that would take effect July 1 was also 2.1%. So just wanted to share that with you. Go to the next slide. This is what that impact will be on residential customers. For the most common customer, it's 66 cents a month with that 2.1% increase. Next slide, please. And sharing what this looks like for commercial, I just picked the 1.5 yard front load garbage dumpster. That one would be $6.85 on those commercial businesses. So that's really our presentation. But before we jump into questions, do want to extend an offer to everyone in the council. If you haven't been to our site, you can go to the transfer station in Astoria, see our Warrenton yard and our shop where all of our vehicles go. Also, we'd love to have anyone who's interested do a ride with one of our drivers, with Josh here. It is very eye-opening. So with that, I'm going to end and answer any questions you have.
I was at the Shred event for the whole day and got a chance to work with your people in your group and they were great. They were very patient, with some crazy questions and I think they collected quite a bit of electronic equipment, so I think we like those outreach activities.
We actually, sorry, we brought down a load of compost, I think it was the next day from our organic facility, and that was gone like so fast, so we're looking forward to having it back. Sure.
Anybody have any other questions?
I didn't hear that, you say you did the hazardous waste, but not the, is that part of your?
No, that's the county that does the hazardous waste, and that's your 4 times, I think they have the, skates on their account right now. We're doing the mattress recycling event, if that goes off really well, then we'll just have it quarterly after that.
Okay, so keep up the good work.
Thank you very much for your time this
Thank
evening, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for helping that lady. Pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, next item on the agenda is public hearing. And I'm going to open the public hearing and state that this is a hearing regarding EPP 2502, an appeal by Chad and Jacqueline Reed for the suspension of a short-term rental for the month of July 2025 due to violations. The property is located at 3720 Pacific, tax lot 5600, map 51031 UG, in a residential moderate density R1 zone. The request will be reviewed under municipal code section 17.84 short-term rentals. Does any council member have a conflict of interest? Any council member have a personal bias? Has any council member had any ex parte contacts? And the city councilor made a site visit. Okay, is there a staff report?
Yeah, I'm sure all you know Tessa, she helps me out a great deal in FCR, so wanted to have her here to basically help me out. What we're taking a look at is when we were conducting audit of the transient room tax. For some of the short-term rentals, we came across 37 Pacific Avenue and found that they had incurred 2 violations. And those violations spanned a 6-month period, and they were for failure to remit transient room tax paperwork. The Community Development Department informed the license owner in a May 15th letter of the 2 violations, which were in December of 2024 for failure to file the transient room tax, and then in May of 25 for the same failure to file transient room tax. Based on that, we had sent that letter out, and the zoning ordinance does give the license owner the opportunity to appeal that suspension, which they've done. They had submitted a letter to the city manager on May 16th and indicated that they were writing the letter to appeal to give, they'd like to have a chance to explain some of the personal life circumstances that led to the unfortunate tardiness in their filing. And this was an administrative filing from a portion that was received late, but the actual funds on the financial side is always paid on time from verbal. Just go through a little bit of the criteria and provide you some of the dates in terms of when the violation was. Typically, there's certain quarter dates that our finance department collects the transient room tax fund from. The taxes are due on a certain date. If they're not paid, letters sent out to them, giving them the opportunity to pay. And then we indicated when, after the violation letters were mailed out, when that was received. So you see that for both the December and the May filing dates. And then with the violations, if there's 2 violations, there's a section that describes, you know, how many days a license can be suspended for. Because there were 2, that was why there was the recommendation for a 30-day suspension. So that's the staff report. I can answer any questions, and I do believe that the licensee was the person who was on Zoom.
I had a question for staff. In the staff comment, the TRT received, that's in reference to their filing and paperwork, right?
That's correct.
For the first violation, that was in December, did they receive a letter from the city about that time?
That's correct. And, I think in part of your packet, kind of later on, it's attachment B. And there's, you see, a letter referred to as the notice of deficiency. And those were sent on September 30th of 2024, and then, March 31st of 2025.
And was there any response to the December one?
Let's see, December, let's see.
Yeah, they responded.
Yeah, they did respond and then paid by that January 24th date.
Okay. But they still haven't.
So what happens, I think the biggest challenge, and sometimes we've talked about this, is that intermediary with Verbo. So what happens oftentimes is Verbo will cut a check to finance, one big check for all of them. And then there is another remittance form that the actual licensee is required to file. And that is the paperwork that has not been forthcoming.
So after getting this notice of deficiency, they still didn't file the paperwork in December.
That's correct.
Or December then, so that wasn't done until, yeah, okay, so there, I guess what I'm saying was there a response? I mean, did they do what they were supposed to do?
Right, it took some time, eventually the answer is yes. I mean, they got it paid, and they eventually did file the paperwork, so, did they eventually comply? The answer is yes, they did.
But it was late.
Right.
And those dates aren't reflected here. The TRT received, is actually coming from VRBO, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that one?
Yeah, so I should specify, TRT received means we received the paperwork.
You did receive the.
We received the
This is
paperwork at
check.
that time. So I can't say when the taxes were received, that
Okay.
large check that doesn't specify property owners or allocations. But the paperwork did not come in until those appointed dates.
And so from these dates, I'm assuming that they actually filed the second quarter of 2024. October 24 to December 24, they filed that on time?
Yes, the October 1st through December 30th, I believe that January 24th date, they filed both quarters at the same time. So that following quarter was on time, but the other one was 3 months behind.
Okay.
So you received the money, VRBO, but I'm sure that was received on time because they're pretty timely, but you didn't know how to allocate those. There was a bucket of funds that you didn't know where they went, right? Because
We don't know what properties they're for. There's no information in the check.
yeah. So, okay. The money was received on time, the reports were not.
That's correct.
Is there any other additional correspondence?
Not that I'm aware of.
No. Okay. So criteria applicable to this request are in municipal code chapter 17.8 for short-term rentals. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward criteria described in the staff report or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or municipal code, which you believe to apply to this decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford counsel and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude an appeal on that issue. Is there a presentation by the applicant?
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, council. Yes, my name's Jacqueline Reed. I'm one of the property owners, and I also handle all of the paperwork and rental of our property. So I spoke with Steve earlier about the filings, and so I'll explain what happened with the first late one. The reason that it wasn't paid for that 3 months is we never actually received the paperwork in the mail. We had some issues with our mail recently in Tennessee. In the neighborhood we're in, all of the mailboxes are within one of those big block metal boxes where there's several mailboxes in the neighborhood, not where everyone communicates to one another. And so we've had multiple issues. Different neighbors have had multiple issues where they're not receiving certain mail. I received my county tax and paid that and paid that one, but that was the first one I had missed. And so I paid it right away with the next payment that was due. I know it's not it's not an excuse. I'm just a busy mom of three that's also running a rental company, and it was a mistake that I made. I've talked to Cannon Beach before about, because if as a busy mom of three and rental home property owner and manager, sometimes we don't get these transient room tax collections until about a week and a half before they're actually due. I'm not sure why they get sent out so late. The county ones come at least a month in advance. I've asked maybe if in the future they could maybe email them out. That way people always get them, as there are sometimes things like this that happen in the mail. That would be a great way for property owners, especially ones that we run everything through VRBO. To be able to have electronic correspondence, maybe to send it out would be great. So we always make sure to get it. That was just my suggestion when I had spoken to Steve. However, since it sounds like that can't be done at this time, I've just made the preventative or the plan for the future so that this does not happen again. Just to set up a quarterly alarm in my phone so that if we are traveling and we don't get the paperwork in time to, remind us to do the quarterly return, or if something does get lost in the mail like that, I'm now aware that you can actually log on and print one of these blank sheets online and not have to wait for it to come in the mail. So I will do it that way to get it done properly every time, and so that this won't happen again. I guess really the only thing I'm really concerned about is that I was not aware. I paid the fines for the late fee. It is my responsibility. I take responsibility that we were late, so I've paid the fees for the late. But like Steve and Tessa mentioned, you guys are never late in getting the money. We bring in a lot of tax money from our rental, and the VRBO always gets that money too. So it was just my mistake to not get the paperwork in late. So the money is always there, but I just wanted to ask the council, with regards to the suspension, we're 2 weeks out from the month of July. So if we do need to follow through with the suspension, is there any way that we can delay it to a different time period? Because we do have a high profile rental in Cannon Beach that we have renters that booked a year in advance, and it's a $1,300 a night rental. So these are high profile tourism clients. This would be going against my VRBO code to try and tell these people that have plane tickets booked, have family coming into town in the next 2 weeks, that they cannot come to their vacation that they've been planning for a year. So I'm just, like I said, this isn't really hurting me in a way. To hurt me, I mean, if I need to pay another fine or whatnot, I'm worried about the renters that have had a family vacation planned almost a year in advance, and how we can proceed with that. Like I said, because of my our mail issue, and then my late mistake with the filing. So, I think that kind of sums up everything let me know how you guys want to proceed, or if you have any other questions for me. And again, my apologies. We definitely want to stay compliant and not let this ever happen again. We just were not, I definitely was not aware that if there was uh, two in a row like that, that you would have a full pool of I would hate to put our these renters in that kind of position to ruin family vacations. Frankly, I don't even know how we would handle that situation for these people coming to Cannon Beach. So just guess I'm asking to see if we can if we still need to go forward with the 30-day suspension, if we're able to do that at a different time to not affect these people's lives.
Could I ask how long you've had this rental property?
Yeah.
And rent through
Yes.
VRB?
Yes, we built the beach house in 2017 for our family, and we weren't going to rent it at first, and then that next year we decided to do that to help break even, so that our family could enjoy the home and make memories there. And so we started renting it. I believe it was 2018. So we've never had this kind of issue before. Um, you could go on our VRBO account. We've only had all 5-star reviews. We only bring in, it's a long-term rental. It's like a 6 to 7 night rental. We really try to strive to bring in good quality family rentals to the area, and not just do rentals for like a quick weekend party. We we've tried to, just strive to bring really good experiences to people that come to Cannon Beach to enjoy. And like I said, it's become very popular in the summer months. So our return renters, they know to book their family vacations out like a year in advance if they're going to be able to secure a July or August date. Um, and like I said, I know this was my mistake. It's no excuse, just a busy mom that didn't get it in the mail and slipped her mind through the holidays and my son's first birthday, and just all the normal life things. And it was a mistake, but obviously a very serious one. We take it very seriously, and we are planning to not let this ever be a issue ever again. And it hasn't been previously. So we're always on time with our business license, our short-term rental license. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you guys for your time tonight.
Can I ask a question? Oh, you wanna go first?
You can go first.
You mentioned delaying the suspension. Do you have a specific request for delaying the suspension, what that would reduce the impact on your scheduled visitors?
Well, we usually do have renters every month, but I would probably say, as of right now, we have people that have planned like 9 months to a year in advance for the months of July, August, and about half of September. And so anything that we could do like second half of September through October, I can at this time like physically go on to my VRBO calendar and just block that off so that nobody would, and that would, punish us for those months when no one would be able to book with us. But I could feel comfortable for that, to do that without having to pool this from these people's family vacations that are booked. And like I said, and obviously I'm not sure if I would be then going again, it would be going against something, that the rules with VRBO and canceling on these people in such a short time period.
Thanks.
Is VRBO aware of this ongoing conflict, or do they know what's going on?
With what conflict?
Is VRBO aware of the problem here with,
No, no, they are not. I mean, I just received this letter 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and then was hoping to just explain the unfortunate circumstances. Was hoping that we could, set up preventative measures so it doesn't happen again and then move forward. But I didn't receive the letter until, I don't know, Steve has the date. What was it, like May 14th, May 15th?
Yeah, May 15th.
Which,
So, but you've been doing this for what, 7 years, right? I
correct.
mean, and so you knew that you were supposed to remit every quarter, right?
I sure do. And that's why I said when we've had some personal issues with some older parents last year where I had to spend time up in Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm from. I have a new surprise Tennessee blessing baby. So the 10-year-old, 8-year-old, and now almost 18-month-old. Like I said, not excuses. I didn't want to waste your guys' time with excuses today. Everyone has busy lives, and I'm being completely honest. It's just a few things slipped this year with some stuff with elderly parents and with a newborn. And some issues with the newborn and care. So like I said, it was an honest mistake. When I saw the new quarterly tax return come in, I was like, oh my gosh, we didn't get what happened, didn't come in the mail. I communicated with my husband, so we got everything paid right away when we realized the mistakes of missing it. But
Anybody have any other questions?
Do you know right offhand what the cancellation policy is through VRBO?
I do not. I was trying to look through. There's a lot of wording. But the can't, I mean, I can physically go on and just cancel a rental in the system. However, there's different, they work on like a point system. So I believe they like ding certain amount of points. It's not so much VRBO I'm concerned about. Like I said, the two things that I feel like it's punishing the most is the people that have these families that they're a couple of weeks out from planning their vacation that they've looked forward to all year to Cannon Beach. And then of course the city of Cannon Beach, who receives a lot of this, I mean a high amount of tax income from during one of like the highest months of probably tax income revenue for you guys.
Okay, any other questions? Are there any other proponents who wish to speak? Are there any opponents who wish to speak? Is there a staff response?
No.
Does the applicant wish an opportunity to add anything else?
No, like I said, it was a mistake, and I appreciate your guys' time and consideration. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna close the hearing and move into consideration.
Can I ask another question of staff?
Yes.
A process question. What do you send out that is like the request or the return? What does that?
Community development works hand in hand with, finance on that. And there's this, transient room tax collection return form that, has a little bit of taxes and then, City of Cannon Beach, report of gross rent. It says identify all transactions with transient lodging intermediaries for the month and quarter. So this gets sent out to them at the end of the quarter.
And is it specific to the properties or this just gets sent to everybody?
It's every quarter finance sends this out to each short-term rental business license.
But is the form specific to a property or it's just a formality requesting it?
NISA actually does prepare it so it's specific, but there is a base form available online for everybody that you can fill out yourself.
And so what's specific about it? Just has their information filled in?
Yeah, their address, so they could like put it in a windowed envelope and send it directly to them.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for staff, and probably should ask them before we really close it, but the other, short-term rental property management, how are those handled? Is the property management, so Beachcomber and Cambridge Property Education, like, do they submit it on behalf of all of their rentals that they're operating, or do the individual owners submit?
The major property managers submit the taxes and the forms on behalf of the property owners.
That is one of the benefits of the
Local stuff, yeah.
And do they pay, one big check, or do they make a check for each one?
They actually do one big check, but a very detailed report and the individual tax forms for each property.
So that's a real advantage. While she was speaking, I thought, why not hire a local
Yeah.
property manager?
I have a question for staff. So you sent out the two delinquent notices were sent out, and then in May, the violation letter was sent out stating that they were going to be, suspended. But it says in section B1, for the first violation within a 24-month period, a penalty shall be a warning notice. Well, were they sent a warning notice? Were they reminded of these?
The letter just did the two violations after we received it. So they did not receive a letter from the Community Development Department for the initial violation. They received the notice of deficiency from finance only.
Right, but they did not receive any documentation saying this is a
There was,
violation.
go ahead.
The second to last paragraph.
On the
letter
delinquency
of
notice?
on both letters of deficiency from the finance department.
It just simply informs, go ahead.
It says, okay, so transient room tax quarterly collection return is due by the 15th of the month following the quarter end and delinquent after the last day of the month due. After 1 month from that date, each day thereafter will constitute a separate violation outlined in municipal code 17.77. In addition to these violations, failure to remit a collection may result in suspension or revocation of your short-term rental permit. So this letter is the violation letter.
Right, and I understand that, when, okay, that's all the question that
I was gonna ask, so that part of it, were they technically in violation for all of quarter4 or all quarter2? So they should have 70 violations, not 2 violations. Every day, yeah, just like.
Yeah. I could have been over 90 violations for that 1 quarter.
When someone signs up to be a short-term renter, do they receive a copy or are they referred to, the ordinance so that they are aware of all the different rules they're supposed to comply with and what the penalties are for not doing it?
When they apply, there's an informational packet that answers those questions. And they sign an agreement that they have fully read and understand the city ordinance. And they have to sign that again upon each renewal.
Any other questions? Anyone ready to?
I guess I have a question for our council. And I guess would it be setting a precedent that would concern us if we suspended the permit September 15 to October 15?
I have hesitation about doing that it doesn't actually punish the violator, that they would intentionally schedule around that violation and not have a financial loss for that violation.
I agree with Eric. I think that it does set a bad precedent. I mean, we have these rules, we have somebody in the city who spends some time working on making sure people comply. There's a packet that goes out and they have to sign each year for it. I just, you know, I know it sounds harsh, but, you know, I think that it sets a bad precedent.
So when does the suspension occur according to our code? Please.
Last time that we were looking at it, we started it like the next day, which was Friday, and then it would basically be from, if, I'm not saying the council can elect to choose, you know, the time they would like to have on it. I think it was the third, I think it's actually 30 days, it's the 13th to the 13th. So if we did Friday, tomorrow, if it started tomorrow, I think 30 days from tomorrow is actually July 13th. So that was how we did it the last time. I'm not saying that's right, but the day after, in that case, it might have been a Wednesday after a Tuesday meeting.
And is that even realistic? I mean, people could have people in there.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's really, that's just what we had done. So I think we're open in terms of a time that you would like to set to something like that.
I am concerned about the precedent.
You what?
I am concerned about the precedent. Nobody's gonna wanna pay the penalty or take the penalty during July and August, but they'll readily do it in March.
I understand that, right? But I'm also just looking at, you know, if there was more, a policy as far as when the suspension would start within our code, that might make more sense rather than it starting the next day when they could have somebody in there for 30 days. And then what position is that, you know, put somebody in?
I think all your points are put on that, and I think that topic's totally up for discussion. And, you know, I think it's a real valid topic that we should continue when we are looking at the zoning ordinance and STRs and things like that. Maybe that's a section to clarify as well in that penalty section. But
I think that if somebody is in there right now, they should. Permission to stay and then.
I'm
and then
on right
set-
now.
Pardon?
Excuse me? Could you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, but we have.
I'm
closed
so-
the public.
I'm so sorry. I just, my husband had come in with my baby. It's like 10 o'clock in Tennessee, so my apologies. I didn't realize. I've been on, you know, with you guys for a few hours now, so my apologies. I was raising my hand to let you know that I never received the packet that Tessa is speaking of. Never once when we signed up for the Cannon Beach rental license, did I receive a packet on those rules. Again, our responsibility to read through them all, but I never, like I had told Steve earlier today, I was not aware that if you happen to be late 2 days, 2 times in a row like that because of the missed mail, then this would happen. And like you guys are saying, unfortunately, it's falling on the July. If I would have been late 2 times in a row and it would have fallen on March, you know, maybe it wouldn't have been an issue. I'm just worried about the people that, these poor families that have planned their vacations.
Jacqueline?
Yes.
The public hearing is closed, so we really should be listening.
Tessa?
Okay.
Doesn't the packet come with the contract you have to
The
sign?
application itself has 6 pages preface on what's going to happen and examples. So if you apply, that means you have the packet.
So a contract could have been signed or a permit issued without the packet being delivered.
So when was the suspension notice sent to them?
May 15th.
My concern is the cancellation period, that it's mailed May 15th. With the chance to appeal, they've had opportunity to potentially arrange for other arrangements for their guests. With this looming suspension. The uncertainty of suspension already existing above their heads for that situation. Like I completely said that the running around, I would hate to have to do cancellations like that, but they've had notice to be able to make those arrangements if it goes that direction for them.
Yeah, I would think that the only way that, you know, to do some kind of a step over would be to actually go back and charge them the violation, which would be about $45,000.
And to go through with it's.
Yeah,
it's
it's
a violation.
Oh, right, so we, you know, if we decided that, you know, we wanted to be courteous to their renters, not to the licensee, then the licensee would have to pay this huge fine.
And the fine would be about
About
$45,000.
$40,000. I just thought it fair.
Okay, anybody wanting to make a motion?
Does this mean we want to stick with the, suspension starting the day following the denial?
Yes. That would be one of the deniers, yeah.
So the motion would be,
Denied.
I move to deny the appeal and suspend the short-term rental permit for 30 days beginning June 13th.
There's a second.
A second.
Any further discussion?
I have a question, June 13th or July? Is
June
that?
13th in March.
So it's gonna,
I'm not saying that's great.
so they're gonna start suspending the license tomorrow, not in
And then
July.
July 13th, they'll be reinstated.
Oh, but I thought the letter said that it would be in July, that the suspension would start in July.
Say that?
My understanding was it was a month or July.
Right,
Maybe. That's.
Oh, yeah.
so 30
You
days
said the month of July.
here in the letter that.
Actually, I guess what you're looking at is the letter we sent out.
Yeah, so it says the suspension will be in place for the entire month of July.
Oh, okay.
It does say that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, oh, here it is, here it is.
I think they did that as a result from the last one because we, they suspended it based off of the letter that was sent, which ended up being the next day. So when Tessa does letters now, she puts it out a little further because of the appeal period. Yeah.
So should we?
Would you like to amend your motion?
Yes, I would, and, but it would be nice to have this kind of policy in mind so that we can just be consistent with when the suspension begins. But since the letter says the month of July, I move to deny the appeal and suspend the short-term rental permit, for the month of July.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call please, Jenny.
Council Day,
Yes.
Council President Kirk,
Yes.
Council Representative,
Yes.
Council Young,
Yes.
you're not.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, at this time pursuant to ORS 221-770, I will open the public hearing in order to give the citizens of Cannon Beach the opportunity to comment on the use of state revenue sharing funds in the city of Cannon Beach's budget for fiscal year 2025-26. Staff, please present your report.
Oregon, thank you, Mayor. Oregon budget law requires the city hold a public hearing on the probable use of state revenue sharing funds and pass a resolution approving participation in the program for the next fiscal year. And that is staff report. I'm here available for any questions that you may have.
Is there any any questions? Is there any member of the public wishing to comment on the proposed use of state revenue sharing for fiscal year 2025-26? Anybody on Zoom? If there's no further discussion, I will close the public hearing at this time. And do we have a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 25-08 for the purpose of declaring the city's election to receive state revenues for the fiscal year 2025-2026.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Council President Kirk.
Yeah.
Councilor Craig.
Yes.
Councilor Hammond.
Yes.
Councilor Haynes.
Yes.
Mayor Naughton.
Yes. Okay, that's at this time pursuant to ORS 294.453, I will open the public hearing in order to give the citizens of Cannon Beach the opportunity to comment on the budget approved by the City of Cannon Beach Budget Committee for fiscal year 2025-26. Staff, please present your report.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The Cannon Beach Budget Committee met in 2 sessions during the month of May to review and deliberate on the proposed budget for 25-26, or for fiscal year 25-26. Next stage of the budget process is for the city council to undergo the budget hearing to receive public testimony on the budget approved by the Cannon Beach Budget Committee. Once the council has heard public testimony, council can then consider the adoption. Council may note as a governing board, you have the authority to modify or change the approved budget during the public hearing within the following parameters. Reduce the tax amount, please don't do that. Reduce the expenditures within the corresponding reduction in resources, and then increase expenditures to no more than 5%, $5,000 for 10% of the total expenditures of the fund, whichever is greater. For example, here, if the approved in the budget is 150,000, then council can increase the expenditures by 15,000 in that fund. One thing, when after the budget committee approved the budget and we did those changes like the transfer of the affordable housing thing, one thing it did not include in the approved budget that slipped through the cracks was the $50,000 that was originally approved for the tennis court right here. There are 2 options that the council can do tonight. First option is we can amend the resolution, which would amend the Public Works General Fund and would increase that 50,000. We reduce the ending fund balance amount by 50,000. The second one that we could do, and I would actually, I think, prefer a little more, but again, it's up to you, is that we direct Public Works to do the design work or have the design work done, and then we would bring that back to council and then have council approve a budget amendment to have that done. And my reasoning for that is the $50,000 number is kind of a swag, and I'm a little concerned about how much that may actually cost. So I would prefer that method, but again, it's up to council, so however you would like this done. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
I'm glad you came prepared for the men's court. That was, I had my list of the.
Where's Richard? Richard reminded me. When we went through, I was really, and as we have talked with Trevor about it, particularly how complicated it is, I think because of the tree, it concerns me a little bit as we get into the design. That I'd really like to bring that back to council with a really a firmer number. But again, it's up to
That's
council.
an action we would take after this budget in another meeting or.
Yes, so basically right now you would just direct Bruce and I to talk to Public Works to do design, and we'll come back later at a later period of time with the design and ask for a budget amendment to fund it at that point in time.
And you would need an adjustment now to cover the cost of design, or?
No, we
that
would,
be all.
yeah, I think we could cover the design cost out of the budget that's there right now. But then what it would actually cost to do the construction, et cetera, I think that would probably be a little more, so that would be my estimate. But again, it's up to council. If you wish me to just adjust the budget, we can. But right now, you can move it up to
Public Works Department and General Fund would go to 843,625, and the ending fund balance will go down to 9,070,284. If you wish to do that, also, that's another methodology to use, but we may have to come back to you again and ask for more money.
I would just assume do a budget amendment when we know what it's actually going to cost myself.
Yeah. Any other questions?
How long would it take to get that designed?
That I do not know, but I can, bug Trevor Mount starting tomorrow.
If this is really something we need to get done in the fall before the rains start.
I think there's somebody to trip over that.
Yeah.
I don't think either direction, I don't think they can slow it down.
No, I agree, I just want.
I'll move to approve resolution number we got it closed, sorry.
Yeah. Is there any member of the public wishing to comment on the approved budget fiscal year 2025-26? Now hear it.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Alright.
So, and it's probably a dumb question there, just
Dumb
on page 8, under resource description, charges for service fees and permits. But I guess. Well, where is the change in the water rates under resource?
We did not lower in the budget piece. We did not actually lower the budget side of it. We lowered the rate, so we're not actually charging it, but from a budget perspective, there's no rate or no change inside the actual budget document at this time. So, or if the council wishes me to, we can come back in July and essentially do a budget amendment that would lower the budgeted revenue and lower the ending fund balance. If you wished me to, we could definitely do that. But there's no budgeted adjustment in the actual budget document at this point in time.
Okay, so this is as if we were going to, I mean, under resources, it's as if we were going to raise the fund.
If at that point in time, yes, that is what that is what it looks like. That is not what has happened, because you approved the 5% rate, so that is not what has happened.
And
That's not the approved rate.
I'm sorry, and that fund balances itself out, right?
That fund balances itself out.
It zeroes itself out,
Correct.
so it's a wash.
It's a wash,
In the
exactly,
document.
exactly. So there's no revenue coming in, no expenditure going out with regards to it, so. Yes, that is correct.
So if there's no further discussion, I will close the public hearing this time. Did you have anything?
I move to approve resolution number 2509 for the purpose of adopting the 2025-2026 budget as approved, submitted and acted upon by the Budget Committee of the City of Cannon Beach, and then amended by City Council, making appropriations and levying taxes for municipal purchases of the City of Cannon Beach for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026.
There a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, roll call please.
Councilor O'Connor.
Yes.
Councilor Net.
Yes.
Councilor Hayes.
Yes.
Council President Kirk. Yes. Mayor Knopf.
Yes. Thank you very much for a smooth budget.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Good process.
Justin, thank you.
Okay, now I'm gonna close the special meeting and open the work session. And the first item on the work session is Parks and Community Services Committee Community Grant Awards Recommendations for fiscal year 25-26. We have two esteemed members of the committee. That have been waiting.
More or less patiently, yes.
Anyway,
Good evening. I'm here, my name is Claire, I'm here to present, the Parks and Community Services recommendations for the 2025-2026 Community Grant Program. I'm joined by my fellow member, Tom and Anita Duber, I think, is probably still online. So we'll be happy to answer any questions when it's done. I've got a bit of a script here. I'd just like to go ahead and read it, and then we'd be happy to answer questions. I do not have any prepared remarks on the two applications that we already talked about, although we're more than happy to discuss those. I'm sure you remember which two they are. Okay. So for over 32 years now, the city has provided funds to support the community grants program. Many wonderful organizations that are founding and do incredible work. I wish you could have heard from each of them like we did. I just want to start off by saying thank you for continuing to fund this program and for increasing the budget this year. Many of these organizations have cited a continuing increase in demand for their services, just as funding has become more difficult for them to obtain. Cancellation of federal funding has already led to staff reductions, fewer choices of government provided foodstuffs to the food banks, and many of the recipients of our grants expect they will see effects, they just haven't seen them yet. So this was really a good time, and we should all be proud and grateful that Cannon Beach is in a position to step up. Thank you very much to the council as well as to the budget committee. Last year, we accelerated the schedule by about a month to get the funds to the recipients sooner than in past. And this year, we're happy that we're going to be able to do it again. You've got the details of the specific grants in your packet, and I'd like to go ahead and read those off unless you'd rather I did.
Anybody who kind of read on it? I think it's okay, not reading it.
Okay, that's your fault. I just want to let you know that, as we did last year, we would like to ask, Mayor Knopf to help us do an announce the grant recipients during one of the summer concerts. We thought that was very well received last year. We don't have a date yet, but we will be working on that. And we also intend to publish, an article in the Gazette, basically, notifying the public of who the grant recipients are. We did that last year as well. So.
And will you include the community bulletin also?
Yeah, and actually, I spoke to Nancy just today, and she's, I know she's working on it. Anyway, so I wanted to specifically thank Sherry Scotland this year. She did a yeoman's job at keeping things together in light of all of the other things that were going on. I'm not aware of anything that fell through the crack that we weren't able to find again and take care of it. Again, thank you so much for allowing the Parks Committee to fund these organizations. I guess with that, I would be happy to answer any questions or any of the rest of us.
You don't remind me again, I know you told us, but I just don't remember. I like what happened with the CD Academy and what happened with Community Action Elk Creek.
So the Cannon Beach Academy did not turn in a complete application. Remember, we discussed that and while it wasn't particularly material, missing piece.
And what was their request for?
Their request was, I don't remember the exact amount, it was quite large, like $57,000.
Wasn't that for their roof?
The bulk of it was, they need to replace the roof. It was also a sprinkler system that they are currently installing the replacement, because that's a requirement for occupancy, but they're having to fund that out of funds that they had intended to spend on their education. So the request was to reimburse that, which was, I think, about $15,000, and then the rest of it was a roof on the building.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that one as a council, but we certainly did talk about the roof. And
That's on the July 8th work session.
so assessing the lease
assessing the lease for the academy and something like that.
And then we can make a decision to take care of
Yeah,
that.
I was thinking, talk about reimbursement for requirements for occupancy.
It seems reasonable to me since it's our building.
So you said it was not a material part of the grant?
So one of the things that we request is, the letter that each nonprofit receives that basically certifies them as being a recognized nonprofit. And I can only say they didn't submit it. You know, we talked about it, well, I should say, when I called, when we decided that we couldn't accept them, I discussed it with, the lady who filled out the form, I don't recall her name, but I mean, she understood, I mean, it just fell through the crack.
They had the letter, but they didn't submit it.
They had the letter, I think you asked me when I came and talked to the budget committee, well, don't we have it from past years, and probably we do, but the process is very specific, it's not the city's responsibility to keep paperwork for the Apple. So now, quite frankly, I'm very grateful for the city being willing to look at police and talk about things, because in the end, this could be a better deal. Now, the other one, the Elk Creek one, that was a complete application. They are, that CAT, the Action Team is a nonprofit organization. And that one was simply, their ask was so large compared to what we had to work with. I mean, almost $300,000, and the work they wanted to do it wasn't gonna do anybody any good to give them a part of it that we could see.
It was to renovate 2 apartments.
It was to renovate 2 currently unlivable apartments. Again, I think, maybe back me up, as a committee, we completely understood their need and would love to see the city be able to work with them.
Yeah.
But we didn't see how that fit in community grants, and we would be taking conceivably funds from so many other worthy causes to try to make a meaningful dent in their request.
Yeah, I know. I just wish that, I just remember the discussion with them and city council kind of pushed them to apply for a community grant.
But the community, I was one to put it in their, wheelhouse, but it was to do the capital assessment, not to do the repair.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's what I thought you,
Yeah,
I thought that's what I thought.
And I went back and looked and thinking, what did I say?
Yeah.
And that's the one that we're putting the criteria for council to discuss. And I don't know if that's on the 8th or not, but also this,
Oh, okay.
because that was kind of why we transferred the money to the Affordable Housing Fund. And that again was, now we come to council to help decide what that criteria will be to
Okay.
what we do.
That's
So,
good.
so that we have set aside some money, but now we have to work on developing criteria.
So those are very good choices, based on, those are very good choices to not fund because, I think we can take care of it in other ways.
Well, I just appreciate the willingness of the council and, the city staff to consider ways that we might be able to help them. We just didn't, the whole committee, we reached we had a consensus that we felt very strongly about these needs, but that we weren't the right place to go. That's it.
Yeah. All right, thanks for the answer there.
So any other questions? Okay, thank you. We will be, putting this to vote on July 1st, but thank you for all of your efforts. I know it's a big task and very much appreciated by our nonprofits.
Thank you so much for continuing to support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, now we have discussion regarding yard debris burning and recreational fire pits. And I think we are all in agreement that yard debris burning is. We decided what we're doing with that, so we're basically just discussing recreational fire pits.
So the red line version changes, everyone on board with.
Yeah, so I had comments, so my understanding from the last time we had this, topic was that we were going to come up with a criteria to add in for like a inspection permitting and have some sort of proposed language, either come up with one of us or request it from staff or from the fire district. For that to get, we didn't give specific direction, I thought that's the direction our conversation had gone. In regards to that, for like SDR permits having a permit for or that gets inspected, that their site gets inspected for safety and all that.
But how does an FDR having a permit help the neighbors in the residential areas? I mean, how does it address the issues that were raised by all those people who signed the petition and?
Well, so the issue of smoke is the same issue that you're gonna have with a resident burning in the backyard. The issue of safety is what would be addressed by a permit of education on what you're allowed to burn, where you can burn them, making sure you have your hose, all of the things that we that are there
Right.
living in town do with our firefighters.
Except that there was a point made, that I thought was a really good point, was if it's a matter of smoke and it's coming in your window, you have to close your windows in the summers, you know, breathe. If it's a neighbor, you know, a resident neighbor, usually you go to them and you work it out. You say, well, you know, your smoke's coming in my window, so could we figure out a way to move the fire pit or something to, you know, to make it. Usually neighbors don't wanna hurt other neighbors intentionally, but when it's short-term renters, they don't care oftentimes. They don't care if their smoke is going. They don't wanna hear from the people next door who live there all the time. So I mean, I think that was a really good point that Mary Beth raised when she differentiated between, you know, residents and short-term renters, the difference in attitude and how they feel so differently. I mean, I understand regulating for safety, but I think safety was just one of many issues that was brought up. One was quality of life for residents. One was, environmental health. And then another one was the fire safety issue. So, you know, encouraging the fire safety is not gonna make a bit of difference for quality of life for residents and environmental health. And, you know, it's interesting to me, I talked to somebody who has many short-term renter, she says, my family has a dozen rental properties under Francis Enterprises Incorporated in Newburgh. In special provision of the lease, we have put in language prohibiting fire pits. Not only are they a fire danger, but the emissions from them are unsafe and bother the other tenants in our rentals. We do allow propane or gas barbecues. So, I mean, this isn't like this, really far out idea to prohibit wood burning fires on lots, particularly lots in presidential streets where the lots are so close together. I mean, I live in an area of town that has lots of short-term rentals. I've never been bothered by fire pits because they're far enough away, you know, from the property that it's never.
So where's the discussion, where do they go for more modern technology of something like the solo stoves, the like proprietary name solo stove, but it's the smokeless fire pits?
What about?
That's my question, is your thought process of the prohibition of those as well?
No, mine is wood burning fire.
those are wood burning
Because
fires.
they emit smoke instead of all.
Those significantly reduce the amount of smoke, but they do emit smoke.
Well, it depends on how significant the use is. I don't know about those.
Oh, they're,
I don't know.
honestly, they're fantastic, they, like, visually no smoke, but there is still particulate, just like there is still particulate with propane. And there is still particulate with
Right.
natural gas.
But it's not nearly as much as there are in regular wood burning fires.
But there's still those, so the solo cells are still wood burning fire pits.
Okay, regular wood burning fire, but the standard one, when you bring in wood, stick it in your backyard and start burning it. I mean, that seems to be one of the big, I don't know about the solar thing, and I can't address it, but, you know, and I know that propane and gas also emits particulate, but not to the extent that a wood burning fire does. And whether we made an exception for solar pits, I don't know. I don't know the technology of them. I don't know how much they emit, so I would be, you know, I'm ignorant on that subject. I can't answer that. But I can say that when I'm hearing from people who live in the community, I mean, to me, I guess I'm surprised that I didn't expect this to be so controversial either. I don't understand when you're weighing the, you know, recreational uses of short-term renters versus the health and safety of residents, full-time residents, not to mention environmental degradation. And I have a whole bunch of, you know, treatises in my folder about, and I don't want to bore everybody by reading them about the, you know, how wood burning stoves affect, or wood burning fire pits affect the environment. I think you all know that.
Because you send them.
Yes, if I sent you a whole bunch of stuff.
I have a question. Did we all agree at one point that residents could have fire pits?
We did,
I think you actually gave us,
Like,
the go ahead.
right,
well,
yeah,
she said we cannot ban it on.
we can't ban it on residents. Okay, I just wanted to make, I
Yes,
just
she
wanted to
said
make
you
sure.
could for short-term rentals, but not for.
Right.
Yeah,
not
and we
for
could differentiate, in other words, it's legal to differentiate, is what she said.
But we could ban it for all.
We could. But I think that a lot of the problems that's, at least from what I've heard from people in the community, mostly has to do with short-term rentals. Because they don't have the same, you know, they, first of all.
It's greater frequency.
Exactly,
it's
rate of frequency.
People who don't care
Right,
as much.
right, residents, you know, might do it a few times a year when they have their family visiting, or the grandkids come to Marshmallows. It's not gonna be every single night like a short-term renter's gonna do, so.
I don't know about that.
A lot of people.
Well, some of us still can sit around a campfire and drink beer and go to work and.
Yeah, well, you don't have to bring, but
Does anybody have any concept of how many wood burning apparatus is in residential areas?
no, just,
Having a residential home?
no statistics, in the residents?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea, I mean, I have no statistics to offer forward, it's just, I'm just all anecdotal from people who are really bothered by it, and they're.
So our code has the 8.08080 prohibited smoke and odor, no fire of any kind shall produce smoke or odors that are toxic or noxious, or that create a public nuisance or safety or health hazard to the surrounding area. So we have a code that could be cited if there's complaints at a location, and if the short-term renter receives code complaints, there's punishment to their ability to operate a short-term rental.
Except that,
Or they lose their opportunity to have a fire pit.
well, there's a problem with that is.
That's not built into the short-term rental suspension sort of thing, it's built in with our get your for violations, you can.
But I noticed from experience in other areas of nuisance, that it's a very difficult thing to prove. Nuisance is difficult to prove, it's not, you just don't go to court or wherever you would go, to court usually for nuisance complaints, and you have to prove causation, and it's not easy to do. And if you have to call in the, well, the code enforcement officer, I don't believe works the evenings. So if you have smoke coming in your window, I suppose you have to call the police and ask them to come out and tell people that it's causing a nuisance to you because, you know, how often can you do that? Do you know, how many people want,
Like to comment on that, any of that?
I think that would be, stretch our availability to respond to other more important calls. Obviously, we do respond to any, code enforcement calls when, code enforcement not here is not here. Pass those down to, most of those code enforcement complaints come in during the day, so we can respond to those in a timely manner. So with fires being in at night, it might prove difficult to stay on top of them along with doing the rest of their duties throughout their shift.
yeah, and some people would feel uncomfortable calling police about a fire pit. Because, you know, I mean, it just doesn't, because they know that the police are responding to accidents and emergencies and crimes and, you know, so they're not gonna feel comfortable calling up the police and, you know, complaining about a fire next door. And each time the short-term rental comes in, it's a new, you know, new group of people and, you know, and each one of them may want to have a fire pit. I don't know, it just seems so, I mean, you know, other places do it. And
So you were on the short-term rental task force, right? So this was brought up in discussion, there were other short-term rental people there, what was the discussion on that task force about?
There was no discussion that was of any consequence at the short-term rental task force about anything.
Yeah, topic. I can't say that I've heard from any short-term rental companies saying, don't do that. And then no one's come to a meeting and made a public comment. No one's talked to me about it.
About what?
About their opposition to this.
So,
No one said that they were opposed to it.
right, and Steve, you talked to, rental companies or a rental company, it sounded like when you were speaking, that it's cumbersome for them to clean up those fire pits.
My recollection from October 2022 was that, there were just some ad hoc comments made, which is, we wouldn't mind that because it's a burden to our staff anyway. We don't want to be obnoxious or be, detrimental to the neighborhood or the environment or anything like that. Those were ad hoc comments after they said, you should probably take this to council for code changes. And during the time, we were doing a code audit and, I was.
So they want to be good stewards of the community.
So, yeah, and, to address, the potential conflict with renters. So after having some conflict with the short-term rental, a couple of different short-term rental guests behind me where this whole thing started. I approached them after, this 28-day period where they had, fires every single night, 28 days. I felt like I was very polite. They were intoxicated, it appeared to me. And, they told me more or less, you know, get out of here. And it actually even called me over and, wanted to fight. And I didn't want any part of that. So that was the first time that I called the police and said, you know, I wonder, you know, first I looked at the code 80808 and the others where it says all smoke is noxious, and all smoke is toxic, or CDC agrees with that also. And I said, officer, this has been going on for 28 nights. I can't enjoy my backyard. I can't enjoy my garage and driveway. I've got a workshop. I have to close my windows. Is there something that can be done? And, they said that they couldn't enforce a nuisance law like that because they couldn't see smoke from in front of the residents on the street over. They drove by there and said, we can't see any smoke. And I have, invited the officer to my backyard. And he didn't want to come, into the backyard because, he couldn't see smoke from the other street. So he didn't go into anybody's backyard. I do have some photos, on my phone of quite thick smoke at times, where I couldn't even see the rental property, very clearly from my back door, which is 40 feet from, the fire pit. But I couldn't even see their back door very clearly because the smoke was so thick. And to address the solo stoves, there's no technology there other than air holes and, creating more oxygen for the burning. To compare that with, methane or propane burning, or, there's no comparison. The solo stoves still produce, quite a lot of smoke compared to, methane, gas.
So, thank you, Steve. So is there, I feel like we need to come to an end to this. I think we all agree, and I think that we take away what we already talked about, yard debris, household waste, it's no brainers. Keep the residential pits available, and ban for STRs. It sounds like, I mean, I don't like that. I don't like that people coming here. I grew up being able to have a campfire, but I do know about closing my windows,
There is a Schwartz restaurant just up and down.
I know, I actually told them I was bringing a grandkid. So,
And I guess if someone really needs to light a fire, they can go down to the beach and do a legal one, but there was a really good point made, and I can't remember who made it, maybe it was Steve, but it was, if you can't trust people to go down to the dunes and light a legal fire, down to the beach, why would you trust them to light a legal fire in their yard?
well,
It's just, it doesn't, I don't know, I think it's for the benefit of the residents. And the people who are here every night have smoke coming in there. I'm not one of those people, but I feel a lot of sympathy for people.
well, and I have been one of those people, and I think that when I actually took the step back and said I did sign that petition, was because it felt like it was all encompassing, and that was before it was residents could still have their burning, have their fire pit, on their occasional. So, that's what I think. I mean, I think that's the only way we're gonna get to the end of this conversation.
I do too. Because, we've got these petitions, we've got people in the community speaking out, and it really, when you balance the two things against each other, recreational fires for short-term renters versus health, safety concerns for residents, plus the environmental thing, it seems like, kind of like a no-brainer in some ways. So, what's the process? We're not gonna move, we go to work session. Yeah.
But I mean, if we are in agreement, we're gonna direct staff to bring back.
An ordinance for adoption.
And see how it looks, and if they want to tweak it, or whatever we want to do.
So can I ask, if that's the route you guys would like to do, could we bring back language on July 1st, not in ordinance form, but in draft form, so you guys can tweak it and make it good, and then we would bring it back in the actual ordinance the following month?
Yeah, that sounds good.
That was okay?
We need to make sure everybody's okay with it moving forward, yeah.
Right, so that, we would do that on July 1st.
Oh.
Because July 8th is getting a little full, so I don't wanna add anything else to July 8th. but we can take the red lines, what we have existing, add in what you guys have said tonight. And, work session, it would just be a work session item, it would be a discussion item, and then we would actually come back with the actual road.
We're okay with that?
I would like to see some kind of phase in on it, a delayed implementation on it, so.
Because if
STRs have time to respond by getting, you know, their propane
right,
things in place. That would be
an effective date.
I believe through the permit process, maybe the easiest way to do that, and that is, you know, all permits are, do they renew it all at once? Or I think that they're staggered,
I think
so that, you know, different times during the year, so that would give them up to a year's time if they just renew their permit, so that the next permit time.
Right,
You know,
that's
so-
what that citizen who.
They don't switch it over by the time they renew.
Right,
Is that what
Yeah,
you're-
yeah.
right, that's what that person renewed her does in her contract, that the woman,
Yeah, notify them of upcoming changes and
Yeah.
have up to an entire year to make
she
that
puts
change.
it right in their permit.
Yeah.
When they renew it.
That's good.
But
Yeah.
there's only one other thing I'd like to say, if I may, Madam Mayor.
I've given you a lot of time.
I know you have, and I really
We'll
appreciate
make
it.
it quick.
I know I've been tenacious with this, but, sometimes those, short-term rental fires smolder all night long. And it's really impractical to call the police at 2 AM to address that kind of an issue. And then, you know, in the next day, it's kind of a forgotten thing until the next night. But when they're smoldering, they produce a lot of smoke and it continues all night. So I want to say thank you very much to all of you for all the time and, consideration being paid in this. And for hearing me out on my comments and, being patient with me. Very appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Jenny, then that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea, but basically,
Yeah.
sure, I want to very good.
Okay, are we ready? Move on to, EV infrastructure and improvement feasibility study.
Yes, council requested a study to analyze the feasibility of installing new EV charging stations. And, we went out and got information from about 5 locations, and it's pretty much, order of magnitude information. It includes potential grant information by site. No analysis was done on individual sites. And, at this point, we just pretty much have data as requested.
How much did this study cost?
I will have to look that up and some.
I kind of wonder how we got here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean. I know we've talked about it, there's been some public comment about it. But what's the real need here? What's the concern? What's the need?
That's what I would have expected a study to show, rather than a bunch of technical information only, maybe some, you know, conclusions and some recommendations and some, you know, a discussion about who would be impacted, and, you know, I've heard a lot of, well, there's been several letters that have been sent out saying that, you know, really, people who are going to benefit from most of these stations are day trippers who come down, you know, and that most of the EV cars now can accommodate going back and forth. I mean, I'd like to see a couple of these stations, maybe 1 or 2 more.
You got a couple more, Elk Creek, a couple of City
Yeah,
Hall, like
right. Exactly.
we already have it, we already have, one station on 240 at Elk Creek, like increasing that, and then City Hall is getting rebuilt and refabbed and all that, but those locations make sense,
They do.
but.
It also makes sense to have. Commercial businesses who are. Benefiting from it, putting in that infrastructure. The public ones, I just wonder what that impact is. Are we just, I mean,
Yeah.
we probably are supporting day trippers, it's an expense to bring day trippers with EVs. And maybe, do we do that because we would prefer to have our day trippers not burning fossil fuels? I mean, at least that's a reason.
Yeah, I guess I was hoping for, to tell the truth, a study that I could understand. I mean, this one, it was just a bunch of technical information of what can go where, how much it would cost, and I guess I was thinking more in terms of, who would use it, the benefits of it, some kind of analysis or conclusions or
Is there
something.
anything in TSP about it?
This information was pulled from TSP, so council's direction was to find out, use the locations listed in the TSP and find out what the feasibility of putting them there were. And so I think that we did this at a retreat a while ago.
But no, like, we need EV charging stations because,
No, nothing like that. So the TSP had a specific parking structure here at Second Street. I think it was really, I can't remember what they called it. It was a parking hub.
Right,
Yeah, parking hub. So
mobility of.
yeah, so we asked them to look at this area and see where the best location in this area would be to have something like that. And then we added in a few other sites, like increased capacity at Elk Creek, the City Hall site, and we even went as far as Toledano Wayside, because there isn't a lot of places here in town that one would fit, because you're gonna take out a parking area to do other things. So we asked them in those areas, where would the best locations be and what would be needed to do it?
So who answered those questions? The report makes it look like Pacific Power answered those questions, and then RMW just agreed with Pacific Power answering the question.
It was a joint venture, so they both work together on this, and so Pacific Power has a lot of things and, obviously has a big involvement with it, but they both came out together and did a site visit. And they visited all the locations, and they talked with state parks, and so it was a group effort with the two of them.
Well, and I think in Richard's letter that he wrote, his public comment that he sent to us, he made a very good point about most people that have EV cars now, they go a lot farther. So somebody could get here from Portland and make it home without having to recharge. And a lot of the rentals actually have charging stations.
The rentals do? I know the hotels do, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, there's a lot on houses.
Yeah, on the, they got they got a great tax deduction.
Well, the technology has changed dramatically since ESP.
Yeah.
It's really small.
also understand the city hall and an effort to move non-emergency vehicles, city vehicles, that direction too. So I kind of understand that, but I'm not grasping why the rest of it. So.
My thought on being interested in the stuff at the RV park is that we already have a gas station there, we already have two ports there. There's one machine with two ports, but like increasing the capacity for that there, to me, makes sense.
Certainly makes the most sense of anything.
But look at the location, that's like a fuel.
And what was that cost? Was that $100,000?
No, that one was still.
Still a couple hundred.
Yeah, there was more total ports on that. On that part. Potentially, a lot of, some of these grants that were in here were not.
The grants
They were
not substantial.
Yeah, they weren't a lot, and it's a short time frame in terms of that.
And who knows how long we're gonna work.
That's the word.
Well, the other, thing I thought of while reading all of it was, that would be really good, tourism and art commission funding, because it's gonna improve the product of visitors coming to Cannon Beach and using EV vehicles rather than gas vehicles.
Yeah, we put a couple of them chambered.
We have to take away parking spots, so.
We have one parking spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we only have one.
Well, there's two, the cameras that hang down.
But I have to leave that on.
I'll be one. Before this, because I don't know, I look at $200,000 and it's like, we can do a lot of things with $200,000. I'm not sure, you know, attracting day trippers.
If
With
that's-
EVs,
if that's
that's
true.
fair.
I mean, I don't know that, that's the problem, I don't know from, I guess this is a feasibility study about the feasibility of putting them in Cannon Beach. But now, I'm starting to wonder, like that, is that, what the demand is.
I'm still
And
making that
don't-
an assumption because, you know, our lodging businesses, our biggest lodging businesses have them.
Yeah,
So maybe it would be used by some of the smaller businesses that, you know, can't afford to put that kind of infrastructure in, and, so I'm sure it's just an assumption.
yeah, but I really, obviously think that electric vehicles are great, I mean, compared to, gasoline burning vehicles, I'd love to encourage them, but I don't even know that this would. You know what I mean? That's what so I guess what I was expecting to see from this, maybe ask for the wrong thing, because I expect to see, some conclusions and some, idea of who the users would be, and if there really was a need for them, or if there isn't a need, I just can't, at this point, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of study you do to figure that out, what's going to be the impact
Yeah,
of it.
so, I guess, I mean, I'm all for seeing it. Like, I think Eric's idea of increasing, the RV park,
The
capacity there, and maybe at City Hall, have a couple of them. And,
Well, it's the city hall portion in their or orders of magnitude suggestion here was the cheapest. I imagine we're ground zone, I think that's the sort of, we're already upgrading service to that, so it's not gonna be a huge change. That was, I mean, it's still $85,000 in there. In the preliminary estimate.
How much was the one with the RV park?
Was
So
it?
adding
Oh,
more.
actually, it's a very next page, that's, sorry.
adding one.
254,000, but this is, three different, chargers. 4 and 2, pardon.
It's not real friendly.
The DC fast charger, 2 ports, and a level 2 charger with 2 ports. So it's a total of 4 ports, I imagine 2 machines, each with 2 ports. Is for 254,000,
So,
but that's changing out the transformer, that's with all that additional work and all
This
that.
conversation gets started because there was previously some significant grants.
yes, and
Okay.
exactly
Yeah.
why. It got started because there was money available. And the source of that money was given to us, with the different granting agencies to do EV charging stations.
So it looks like now for that is $10,000 for a $200,000 project.
And those grants, the applications are due to the end of this, we don't have time.
Well,
We wouldn't even have time to get applications.
right, but the other thing is that the information we got at that time wasn't that it was a $200,000 project, $10,000 grant. It was more like it would pay for itself. Is really how it was presented, and maybe it would have, but obviously, at least not according to this study, it would not.
Or that's the way it was understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
So that's what I'm so confused about now, I just don't get what the point of those.
I really think with the exception of maybe putting a priority on city use and beginning to use EVs for appropriate purposes. I think we should revisit this
But I
in the future,
No, I think,
far into the
but
future.
I think we should also include a discussion about increasing it at the RV park. getting a couple more.
So, and
We could, but I'm $250,000.
that's for four, that's
Yeah.
the fourth, I don't think we have to add four. And I actually. It's kind of hard to believe how expensive this is, but. You know, it doesn't cost that to add it in your home, why would it cost that much to add, you know?
Is it the conversion?
It's a.
Is it the power conversion?
Commercial grade fee that one factor into this is your home.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just don't, but that's a huge differential between, I don't get it. But like I said, I didn't get the study, I didn't.
Richard, do you want to make a
Can I add
quick
something
comment?
just quickly?
Yeah, yeah.
Number one, the RV park, the two chargers and batteries, high voltage DC charger and one low voltage level 2 charger. Those were put in by ODOT. About 8 or 9 years ago. They paid for it. And there's a company that operates those. The proposal that you're looking at, it's $250,000 at the RV park, calls for a DC charger. Cannon Beach does not use and does not need a DC charger for anything. That's like a Tesla supercharger up at Seaside or like the charger at Fred Meyer. They're very high voltage. You look at the cost of they're $75,000 just for the piece of equipment. We don't need that. You need a level 2 like they have at the hotel. The level 2 charger, you could buy one on Amazon tomorrow for $600. A good one. So there's a big difference depending on what equipment you put in.
And that might be more of use to someone in an RV that would charge overnight? Is that what you're?
Although the DC fast charger is not gonna charge you up for an hour. It's gonna charge you up overnight.
Right.
Yeah.
The
I mean, excuse me, the DC fast charger is gonna charge you up in an hour.
Right.
The level 2 is gonna charge you up overnight. The big difference.
So it's not gonna help day trippers a whole lot if they're gonna
Well,
plug in a
if you're-
slow charger and, you know.
If
Into
you're here for
that.
2 or 3 hours, they could pick up 90 miles, 80 or 90 miles. But those two are not busy. If you go to the RV park, and if you read the comments, they can't hook up a lot of times, they don't work. And the cell phone doesn't work over there, their cell phone doesn't work, and that's what they have to activate the account.
Which is
So,
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking a look at this and offering your expertise on it.
Yeah.
and it worked. You had to do my advice anytime.
So if we want to just put in the kind of charger with the less expensive one, you're saying that it certainly wouldn't be $250,000.
Oh, no, because I mentioned in my letter, there are partnerships. Tesla offers them, ChargePoint, those are the two kind of major brands, there's lots of other, but they have partnerships that they partner with cities, hotels, and they help you do the installation. Tesla, I think gave all the chargers here in town, those were free to the service they had, with various places, they had a destination charger. Put it in your hotel, we'll put it on the website and people will come to your hotel. So, they don't do that now, but they still have a partnership. So it's worthwhile. I think there's lots of avenues to explore.
There's a business out of Portland called EV Ranger. What they do is they come in, they do exactly what Richard said, and they help you set up a system. And they take a cut of the increased kilowatt hour that you're charging, and they give you a cut of that increase between what Pacific is charging and what the charger is charging, or what they charge for the recipient of the electricity. So everybody gets a cut. It helps pay and offset all the costs of installation and so forth, and eventually there's some profit.
Yeah, I think ChargePoint actually will install their chargers for you, but they get all the revenue, they get the revenue. So there's a lot of avenues available.
Yeah.
They don't cost $250,000.
Right.
There's a lot less than people.
And none of those are in our feasibility.
Yeah, this was
So.
45,000.
Hmm?
45,000 for the
But
slow
none of
charge.
none of that information that is being provided is in this study. So
Right.
that's what,
Cannon Beach Electric just put them in, they put in the one at my house, you just put one in on the corner of the road of Hemlock I mean, they do that stuff. They could probably give you an idea too of the cost to put in. Just if they usually gave them a contract, we want 4 new ones over the RV park. They can tell you what it would cost.
I had JJ Electric put in a level 2 of my home and paid about $1,000 for the unit itself and about $1,300 for the installation, but again, that depends on how far we'll have to go, whether they have to do your junction box and so forth, but it's a lot cheaper than $250,000.
Yeah. But the ones the city would put in, I'm assuming you're not gonna do these for free. You're gonna charge the user for the charging session. Right. By the amount of electricity they use.
Yeah,
I mean, that's my assumption.
well, yeah, I think so, absolutely. Okay.
Oh, did we table this? How long can we table this for?
Well, I think we need different information to make a decision.
Just seems like we can get it right here.
Well, and the thing is how much did we pay for this survey and how much is another one?
So that's,
was a study.
it was a study, and it was about $5,000.
Oh, that's not bad.
They also, the contract we had with them was for, I believe, up to 12,000, that included design, electrical designs, like the whole big thing. So there are a lot of different components you have to look at when you're doing these. You have to take into account your infrastructure, where you're putting it. I know Public Works has some serious concerns about these because there's cities that have had fires with them. We asked them to look at areas that would minimize the impact of parking. You know, there's, outside of just having a charger, there's a lot of discussion that needs to be had, do you want to get parking for this?
Well, weren't we just talking about just doing it at Elk Creek and
And the school, and
and
City Hall.
City Hall?
City Hall, the parking places, I think we're at the required number of spaces for size of the building. We have 2 spaces, for example, that we could turn into a commercial use. So we'd have to check that.
The council's made exceptions before for parking.
We want to direct city staff to explore less expensive options.
Okay, wait a minute. Everybody's talking. One at a time.
The RV park.
Start again, please.
We're requesting the city staff explore the less expensive options for adding EV charging stations to the RV park.
That makes me nervous.
That makes you nervous?
Yeah, if we're talking commercial, we should be doing commercial installations. And not the cheapest installation, which is something more.
Okay, strike what I said about cheapest installations.
Middle of the road.
How about I just say we explore options at the RV park and we can see what other things that we can come out, but I am gonna ask if we put this out of 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The reason we did this study was because people kept bringing it up and kept bringing it up and kept bringing it up. And so this was a way to get some information to start us moving forward on.
Why don't we ask one of those companies that was mentioned, you know, that from the audience?
Yeah, in the
If they
future.
would if they would just give us an estimate. It would seem to me that that would make sense, that if they would want to, because, you know.
I mean, we can definitely do that in the future when we revisit this again. I mean, this RNW is an electrical engineering company, so. I mean, we wanna make sure I mean, obviously, I know that the cost was a little bit shocking, but it's more than just doing it in ground.
Exactly, I understand that, it's like so much more that I'm wondering if one of the other companies could, I'm sure they would not recommend something that was unsafe, I would assume.
And a
So,
partnering program would be good because they would take on some of the responsibility for the equipment.
yeah, see, I like that.
And otherwise, the city's gonna be responsible for that equipment.
I would think they take on all the responsibility. Yeah, they're getting the revenue.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What were the 2 companies you both mentioned?
Well, Charge Point is one, and I know they have a program, a municipal program, and they will, I think that's what Gerhard by the Sea is putting. They're building a new office building and they're putting in, EV chargers that are being paid for partially by the city of Gerhard and PPML and Energy Trust. I think they're getting some grants. I think they're getting the rest of it. And I think those have, like a card reader that you charge for. And then Tesla has a program. I put a link in it, in the letter I sent David. It said basically you fill out an application online and they'll send somebody out to evaluate your site.
Charging point sensors. And then
And that's a charge for what you said.
you mentioned someone as well.
So there's one out of Portland, it's EV Ranger, and they don't pay, I think ChargePoint takes all of the profit off of that, what they charge versus what they pay for the electricity.
I think you have pretty programs. I don't.
Yeah, but EV Ranger will split that revenue with whomever puts them in. And they won't pay for any of the equipment, but they will oversee the installation, as I understand it, EV Ranger out of Portland.
So what if we direct city staff by, early fall to bring back some research that they have done using these terms that were mentioned?
Yep, I added this to the October 14th work session.
But that means we have to have the information, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be on our to-do.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on that? Okay, and thank you guys for your input. Thank you. Next, we have good of the order, and the first item on good of the order is, the letter that support that the county is asking us for. And generally,
Yeah, it's on the,
right,
what is it? I emailed it to the.
right. So, does anybody have any issues with me signing that letter?
It's just for them to do their own essential TSP, that really want their own TSP.
Yeah, so they're gonna get a grant.
Yeah.
Supporting them getting.
Yeah. We're okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're signing it to the mayor. The entire thing.
I think that's why I'm asking.
Well, we're going to object to the plan having a signed by the city council.
I don't object to that.
Okay, okay.
Can we have?
Okay, the family. Okay, anything else for good of the order?
Yeah, I had, somebody talked to me recently, a citizen about, and I thought this kind of interesting idea. And I don't know when we do this, but, they were saying that they were wondering about, the values of the city, what our values are, because if we understand what our values are, then it's easier to make decisions based on those values. And we never really had that discussion as a council that I can remember. At least not while I've been on the council. And it's an interesting idea, I think, because if you establish what your values are as a council, everything, a lot of things, decisions would flow from that. And it seems like more of a retreat kind of topic to me. But I would like, I was hoping everyone would sort of keep it in the back of their mind, about that idea. Like, 'cause I started thinking about it after they said that, I thought, well, really, what are the council, what values would we all agree on?
I actually had a similar question, I think it was, Anita maybe, asked me.
Right, this is Lila.
Oh, right.
Yeah, somebody said something to me too, similar
Yeah.
mission, like, what is?
Right, and I think that's such an interesting idea, I'd like to, explore that, I don't know, when at this point, but I know we're so busy, but,
Fiber twin bullet points.
just think about it, and then it maybe would be on the next, retreat that we do, as a major topic of that, because I think it's gonna require a lot of thinking.
Yeah.
Because. And then the other thing was the drone issue, is how we're gonna get an answer to that, person who asked about the
It seemed like all of those questions could have been asked directly to the chief and he could have provided all the answers, but how much do we need to hear?
I asked her if she'd like to meet with me and she was kind of hesitant, so I'm gonna reach out to her by email, have her send me questions, and then if you'd like those questions answered, which is what she said, she'd like to be, have it done in a public forum, I can answer all those
Great,
questions.
that'd be great.
Give us a presentation.
I'm curious,
Okay.
you know, I didn't.
That'd be great information.
Yeah.
To hear our comment about what we're doing with the program.
Yeah.
Which one of these, no city money was spent on this, it was a grant.
Yeah, I know,
I thought I
I don't think she's
somewhere.
thinking about money. I know.
That was one of her questions.
Oh,
So
okay.
even if she doesn't give you a response to your email, why don't we,
I think I can kind of get the gist where she was, asked.
but I mean, why don't we put on an agenda, on the agenda item for a presentation by you?
When you want.
Whenever you have.
We do August.
should have it done on-
Okay, August 12th.
That's-
Okay, and I started a list of retreat topics, just so we don't forget anything, so on my agenda list, I've got retreat topics, and I will add. What?
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else for good of the order?
When the presentation, we got a request for July dates for the
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
presentation. Do we have any more information about that?
So, look, I did a follow-up, I emailed Diana last week to see where we were at with it, and she says it's looking like July 15th, but she was waiting to hear back from one person. So I actually emailed her earlier today and just said, hey, have you heard? So July 15th, still pending, but she's still hoping to hear back from one of the people. So, maybe she gets back, whatever.
Yeah, that's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've talked to a pretty good number of people, and they're all, you know, we have the one line, I wanna see it, I'm like, I don't know this.
So we wanna get the word out there and let the meetings and everyone know. Probably encourage everyone in the house. Should be that basic.
Okay, anything else for good of the order? Okay, meeting's adjourned, thanks everyone.
At 9:37.